The story commences within the walls of Tessar Orphanage. The director, addressing all the children gathered outside, announced the arrival of a new resident. A young girl, visibly anxious, stepped forward, introducing herself as Dana and timidly requesting someone to look after her. Among the orphanage children, a girl with brown hair and eyes froze, her blood running cold at the sight of Dana. The newcomer possessed striking bright blue eyes and silver hair, luminous as the moon. This brown-haired girl was instantly convinced Dana was Elad Diana, the youngest daughter of the Duke's family. Panic surged through her as she questioned if she was trapped in a dream. Had she truly died within the Ladd family only to be returned to this very day, the day Diana entered Tessar Orphanage? This felt like a cruel jest of fate. A day prior, at the Turrent Information Village headquarters, Master Turrent greeted a woman. He inquired about the purpose of her visit to his office. The woman, Rhea, a highly skilled first-class agent of Turrent, stated that it was the day the Master had promised her a mission. Turrent feigned forgetfulness, smiling and asking if the day had already arrived, which ignited Rhea's fury. She pointed out that among all the first-class agents, she alone had been denied a proper mission for over a week, questioning the limits of his disregard for her abilities. The Master, with a sly tone, inquired if she desired a real mission, assuring her he hadn't forgotten. He added that this mission was significant, warning her about missing the next day's programming. He instructed her to complete the task entrusted to Jade before her return and asked if she could handle it. Rhea eagerly confirmed her capability. Leaving the Master's office, Rhea encountered Jad. She confided in him about her new mission, revealing it involved infiltrating the Duke Elad family. Jad expressed alarm, questioning if the Master had truly assigned such a task. He remarked that with Rhea's skills, missions of this caliber should be commonplace for her. He then playfully accused him of always making fun of her, contrasting it with his sudden praise. Jad retorted that everyone was aware of her abilities but had simply been envious of the Master's perceived favoritism towards her. Rhea, confused, questioned his meaning of favoritism, sarcastically listing the mundane tasks she had been assigned, finding lost handkerchiefs, helping lost children find their way home, and vehemently declaring that if this was favoritism, she was utterly fed up with it. Jad dismissed her complaints, changing the subject. He casually inquired if she hadn't mentioned knowing someone from the Duke's family. Rhea visibly tensed, nervously stammering, questioning when she had ever said such a thing. Jad reminded her of the night she had her first drink as an adult, recalling her mentioning an orphanage from her childhood. Desperate to divert the conversation, Rhea claimed it was just drunken ramblings and vehemently denied any connection to such a prestigious noble family. She abruptly changed the subject, glancing at the clock and declaring it late, stating she needed to sleep for her mission the next day. She bid Jad goodbye and thanked him for the meal, but as she turned to leave, Jad asked her to wait a moment. However, the moment Rhea was out of sight, a suspicious smirk crept across Jad's face. She mused internally that Duke Elad was renowned as the sword of the Lat Shutan Empire. She acknowledged her own unbreakable connection to the Duke Elad family. Even after 10 years, those piercing eyes and that unwavering resolve remained vivid in her memory. Meanwhile, Rhea found herself perched atop a tree, observing the Duke's mansion. Lost in thought, she reminded herself that her past should not interfere with her current mission. She recalled her master's instructions to identify any visitors to the target's mansion and discern the nature of their conversation. She had anticipated something significant, yet the scene struck her as odd. The Duke's family's entire order of knights was present, but an eerie silence hung in the air, as if no guests were expected. Curiosity gnawed at her regarding the mission and the anticipated conversation. Suddenly, a carriage appeared, prompting her to wonder if this was the expected guest. 2 hooded figures alighted from the carriage. To her surprise, Duke Ladd himself was there to greet them, welcoming them with laughter. She was taken aback. It wasn't the servants, but the Duke himself who had come to receive them. Realizing this must be no ordinary guest and knowing she needed to follow them immediately, she prepared to move. However, before she could react, a sword pressed against her neck. A voice demanded her identity, threatening her life if she remained silent. It was Lucio Elad, the Duke's eldest son. Rhea froze, recognizing Lucio's voice and feeling a surge of despair. Of all people, he was the last person she wanted to encounter. According to Jad's information, Lucio was supposed to be away from the mansion that day. Alarm bells rang in her head as she realized the treacherous Jad had deliberately fed her false information. Lucio commanded her to surrender, promising to spare her life if she revealed who had sent her. Instead of complying, Ria swiftly drew a dagger and hurled it at him. Lucio reacted quickly, blocking the attack. "So that is your answer," he stated, declaring he too would show no mercy. Lucio raised his sword and swung it with speed. A light breeze accompanied the movement, slicing through the mask that barely concealed Ria's nose, exposing her face. Lucio's blue eyes widened, and he began to tremble as if struck by a gust of wind. In a trembling voice, he asked why she was there and then, astonishingly, laughed. Ria was stunned. He couldn't possibly remember a simple brown-haired girl after 10 years. It was inconceivable. He was the one person she never wanted to reveal this side of herself to. Panic seizing her, she decided to flee. As she ran, he shouted for her to wait, reaching out a hand to stop her. Someone yelled, "Don't run," and then a blade plunged into her back, piercing her heart. Witnessing her fall, Lucio's eyes widened in shock. He rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms, desperation in his every movement, while guards swarmed, shouting about capturing the intruder and ordering her restraint. Blood gushed from Ria's mouth, and she cursed him internally for letting his guard down. Lucio, consumed with worry, cried out her name. Hearing him utter her name filled Ria with confusion. She hadn't thought this could be real. In her final moments, he frantically screamed her name, begging her to stay awake. As her consciousness slipped away, Ria's thoughts drifted to her master's words. He had once asked her if she truly believed people would recognize her merely because she acted a certain way. He had warned her that he would never be a good person to her and that no matter what he said, she should never be deceived by him. Laughing softly to herself, the realization that she should never have trusted him was the last coherent thought before darkness enveloped her. Then, abruptly, she gasped awake, breathing heavily. Disoriented, she looked at her hands, bewildered to be alive. She was certain her heart had been pierced, yet she felt no pain. Unable to comprehend what had transpired, she noticed her hands were remarkably small. Stunned and utterly confused, she sat up abruptly, frantically scanning her surroundings. "No way," she whispered, taking in the familiar sight of an old bed and tattered curtains. It was the painfully familiar scene from the orphanage she had grown tired of in her childhood. Drawn to a mirror, she looked at her reflection. The image staring back was no illusion. She had been sent back to the past. Moments later, Ria found herself lost in thought once more. A girl's voice called her name repeatedly, drawing her back to the present. She turned to the girl, inquiring what was wrong. The girl, noticing Ria's lack of appetite, asked if she was feeling unwell, observing that Ria had seemed distracted throughout the meal and questioning if she wouldn't eat her bread. Ria, feigning disinterest in food, declared she wasn't very hungry that day and asked Emily if she wanted it. Emily's face lit up with excitement, eagerly asking if Ria truly meant it and if she could have her bread. Ria confirmed, smiling kindly as Emily profusely thanked her, her laughter tinged with a lingering unease. The vivid memory of blood draining from her body still felt disturbingly real, yet here she was, inexplicably returned to the past, living as if the near-death experience had been nothing more than a nightmare. She found it difficult to fully grasp. Suddenly, a boy approached her, gesturing towards her uneaten bread. "If you're not going to eat that, I should take it," he announced with a smirk. Ria recognized him, Thomas, the boy who, by virtue of his size, appointed himself the leader of the orphanage children. Ria scoffed, telling him not to be ridiculous in questioning why he thought he had a right to take her food. Thomas was taken aback, surprised by her assertive tone. "What did you just say?" he stammered. "How dare you talk back to me?" Just then, another boy intervened. "Thomas, stop making a scene," he said, telling him to quit bothering the others and asking if he wanted to be scolded by the director. Thomas, turning to Jack, demanded to know why he was interfering. Jack retorted that Thomas was the one who had started by picking on the younger children. Thomas was visibly shocked, muttering in disbelief at the sudden defiance from these usually timid orphans. He, however, quickly snatched the bread from Ria's plate and ran off, taunting the girls as he went. Ria abruptly stood up, calling after him to stop right there. Emily, tugging at her dress, asked with concern if Ria was going after Thomas. Rhea hesitated, a flicker of nervousness crossing her face before she replied in the negative. The other children exchanged confused glances, wondering what had come over Rhea. Was she suddenly unafraid of Thomas? Was she not worried about being hit? She seemed different today. Rhea internally acknowledged that in the past, she had been weak and timid. Wouldn't it be strange if she suddenly changed overnight? For now, discretion seemed wise. She reassured Emily that she was all right and thanked her for her concern. Jack, meanwhile, observed her in silence. Later, Rhea's stomach rumbled loudly, a stark reminder of her hunger. She was so drained she lacked the energy to even feel frustrated. Forgetting their earlier minor conflict, she thought she probably should have chased after Thomas to get her bread back, but then Jack had intervened. Suddenly, Jack's voice startled her, "Idiot." Leaning against the wall, he questioned her foolishness in giving up her bread. Rhea retorted, asking if he was implying it was her fault now. He affirmed, stating that if she hadn't surrendered her bread in the first place, none of this would have happened. Annoyance flared within Rhea, mentally labeling him an arrogant brat. She briefly considered punching him, but then he offered her a piece of bread. "Here," he said, telling her to take it and forget about it. She asked hesitantly if he was giving it to her. He confirmed, adding that if she didn't want it, she could just throw it away. Rhea quickly assured him she wouldn't throw it away, a warmth spreading through her at his unexpected kindness. She reflected that in her previous life at the orphanage, she and Jack had barely exchanged words. Now, she felt a surge of gratitude. She smiled radiantly at Jack, telling him he was a good child too. Jack looked bewildered, commenting that she was acting strangely today. Just then, a shout echoed through the room. It was the director of the orphanage, summoning all the children to the entrance. He announced the arrival of a new child. It was at that moment he introduced Diana to the children, the very same day Rhea had returned to after dying at the Duke Ilad's estate. The youngest daughter of the House of Ilad, Diana, had arrived at Tessar orphanage. Rhea wondered if it could merely be a coincidence. Diana stood there, looking forlorn and tearful, as the orphanage children surrounded her, their whispers laced with resentment. "What the hell is this? Another mouth to feed. We're already starving." Rhea's thoughts turned somber. If Diana hadn't appeared at the orphanage, the Duke wouldn't have destroyed it, and she wouldn't have become destitute overnight, enduring unimaginable hardship. Pushing aside these resentful thoughts, Rhea approached the small girl, using her nickname, Dana. She kindly inquired about her age. She knew blaming Diana was pointless, it wouldn't change anything, and an innocent child shouldn't bear the weight of such responsibility. Diana looked up, a small smile gracing her lips at someone addressing her. She happily replied that she was 4 years old, taking Rhea's hand and adding that she barely remembered her age herself and that Rhea seemed quite grown up. She then offered to help Diana wash up. Diana, surprised by the unexpected kindness, readily agreed. Rhea realized this could be an opportunity to alter not only her future but Diana's as well. Smiling, Rhea began to remove Diana's dress. Diana, giggling, raised her arms high in the air. Rhea dampened a cloth and gently began cleaning Diana's face. "Is it cold?" she asked softly. Diana shook her head no. Rhea recalled that in her previous life, Diana had been incredibly needy and prone to tears. The orphanage children, fearing reprimand from the director, had kept their distance. Rhea herself had also maintained a distance, like the others. Yet, strangely, Diana had always gravitated towards her more than anyone else. At the time, it had felt overwhelming, but looking back, it must have been incredibly difficult for a 4-year-old to be separated from her family. After cleaning Diana's face, arms, and hair, Rhea chuckled softly, impressed. She hadn't truly noticed until she wiped away the dust. Diana's silver hair and blue eyes shone with such brilliance they were almost blinding. Anyone could see she was from the Ilad family. "The director calls us idiots every day," Rhea mused internally, "but he's the biggest idiot of all, thinking a child so clearly noble is just an orphan." She told Diana she would clean her feet next, but then stopped, shocked to see Diana's small feet covered in sores. Diana looked down, startled, and quickly said it was nothing. Rhea reassured her gently, saying it was okay and she wouldn't be angry, encouraging Diana to be honest. Diana asked tentatively if it was serious and if Rhea wouldn't scream at her. Rhea chuckled, assuring her, "Of course not, Diana." Diana then admitted that it did hurt, as Rhea had suspected. Knowing Diana was afraid of being scolded, Rhea reassured her not to worry, promising her older sister would make the pain go away soon. Reaching out, she held Diana's foot in her hand. Diana asked if she would blow on it to make it better. Rhea smiled, replying that she would do something even better. Then, she used magic to heal Diana's feet. Diana gasped, her eyes wide with wonder as the sores vanished, leaving her feet completely unmarked. "You're so cool. So amazing," she exclaimed, a little embarrassed. Rhea laughed, dismissing it as nothing. She was pleased to have learned several magic tricks from the master, even though her natural mana was so weak she could barely use it once. Just one use of healing magic had usually completely drained her mana. But then, she noticed something strange. Confusion furrowed her brow. She should only have a tiny spark of mana remaining, yet she felt almost full. Something was definitely wrong. Shaking off her unsettling thoughts, Diana suddenly threw her arms around Rhea, hugging her tightly and thanking her profusely, saying she was so happy because of Rhea. Rhea laughed, a warmth spreading through her chest. She felt the soft scent and warmth of the child, realizing that the overwhelming events of the past day had left her feeling adrift, but now, her heart felt a little calmer. Hugging Diana back, she said she was very happy to have met her too. Many questions swirled in her mind, but she knew what she needed to focus on now. If she remembered correctly, in just 1 week, Duke Elad and his knights would arrive. At that time, the director, planning to sell Diana into the slave market, would hide her. He would then lie to the knights searching for the missing noble child and be exposed. His actions would implicate the entire orphanage, leading to the Duke's wrath and punishment for everyone. But Rhea thought, if she took good care of Diana for the remaining week and gathered evidence of the director's corruption, perhaps she could reveal it to the Duke. The future could certainly be different. That night, as they lay down to sleep, Diana asked if Rhea could read her a book. Rhea explained she didn't have a book and asked if Diana was having trouble sleeping. Diana nodded. Rhea then offered to tell her an ancient story. Diana looked at her, eyes wide with admiration, and, touching Rhea's necklace, asked what it was. Rhea, taken aback, asked if it was pretty, explaining that she had worn it since she was abandoned in front of the orphanage. She had always felt she shouldn't take it off, believing it might be a sign that could lead her back to her parents. But then, she noticed it was cracked. The sight of the crack filled her with sadness. Tears welled up in her eyes. Diana, noticing Rhea's distress, tried to comfort her, saying that even with the crack, Diana declared that it was still beautiful, just like her sister. Confused, Rhea asked if she was beautiful. Diana affirmed, "Yes, my sister is beautiful, so beautiful that she shines." Rhea was taken aback, wondering if anyone had ever called her pretty before. A warm blush crept onto her cheeks as she thanked Diana, confessing that Diana was the first person to ever call her beautiful, at least to her face. To be honest, when she was younger, Rhea had thought she was very beautiful. Every time she looked in the mirror to wash her face, she was struck by her own reflection: light pink hair that swayed gently like watercolors, dark pink eyes that shone brightly like jewels, immaculate, flawless skin, a straight nose, and cute lips. Yet, no one around her had ever called her pretty. If she was pretty, surely someone would have said so at least once. She used to think it was just jealousy and that she shouldn't let it bother her, until she overheard a conversation. A girl was admiring the color of N's hair, saying it was very pretty and she wished she had a similar tone. It was quite unique. Rhea, emboldened, turned to Lizzie, asking what she thought of her hair color and if it wasn't unique and beautiful too. Lizzie turned, confused, replying that her hair was beautiful and soft, but it was just brown. Hearing this, Rhea was shocked, dropping the bucket of water she was carrying. Stunned, she wondered what it meant. Looking at her reflection in the spilled water, seeing the pink hue of her hair, she questioned if the color she perceived as pink was actually brown to others, if the way she saw herself differed so drastically from how others perceived her. She decided to ask the other children what color her hair and eyes looked to them. One girl replied brown hair and eyes. A boy confirmed, his eyes are a little brown, and his hair is a little more. She continued asking, and everyone gave similar answers. She began to think her own eyes were playing tricks on her, but still, she couldn't let it go. She even asked a painter to do her portrait, and then even her master. Well, that was all in the past now, and right now she had something more important to focus on. The next morning, at breakfast, after finishing everything on her plate, Diana remarked to Rhea that she certainly ate well, but then realized she was still hungry. She was still young and clearly had a huge appetite. Rhea, noticing, gave her own bread to Diana. Diana happily accepted, expressing her gratitude. Rhea thought she was still a little hungry too, but she was an adult and could handle it. However, later, she realized she couldn't. She felt like she was going to starve to death. She had planned to wash clothes and fetch water but hadn't realized how weak she was. Exhaustion was so profound she could barely feel the mana within her. If only the orphanage had a better water system, she wouldn't have to suffer like this. Just then, Diana pointed to a place, saying there was water there. Rhea thought, everything is fine, as long as Diana is happy, that's all that matters. Reaching the lake, she gratefully sat down to rest, relieved they had finally arrived. Rhea told Diana to stay there while she washed the clothes. Diana agreed, saying she would watch the clothes. Rhea looked at the pile of laundry, noticing how heavily stained with dirt they were. She needed to hurry and wash them and return quickly. Suddenly, she heard a noise. Curious, she went to investigate. She found Jack practicing fencing with a stick. Rhea stood behind a tree, observing him. She had no idea Jack had been training in a place like this since he was little. He had never had proper training, but his form was surprisingly clean, without a single bad habit. Well, Jack was never an ordinary person to begin with, Rhea mused. Looking at Diana, Rhea remembered that Jack was destined to become one of the future 3 great knights of the Empire, a born swordsman and the one destined to become Diana's loyal knight. Realizing he had finished training, she suddenly pulled Rhea from behind the tree. Proudly, she thought her stealth storant was perfectly suited for this, she would never be caught. However, Jack said he could see her hiding and told her to leave. Startled, she shivered as she emerged from her hiding spot. "You knew I was there," she asked, and he confirmed he had known from the beginning. Feigning nonchalance, she said if she had known, she would have come out and said hi earlier. Just then, her stomach growled loudly, leaving her mortified. Of all moments, her stomach had to choose now to make noise. Jack asked why she had given all her food to that brat again today. Looking at Diana, he called her a little thing, saying she ate a lot for her size. Diana, upset by his words, began to cry. Distressed, Rhea asked Jack what he was doing, stating, "Of course children need to eat a lot to grow big and strong." But Diana and Jack stuck their tongues out at each other, dissolving into laughter. Rhea thought, this is the child to whom he will swear loyalty. He probably should be a little nicer. He tossed a piece of bread to Rhea, telling her to stop talking nonsense and take it. She asked if this wasn't the bread he had been guarding so jealously. He told her to just eat it and that if she didn't want to keep stealing from him, she should take care of her own portion. Turning to Diana, he jokingly told her to think about stealing his food. Diana giggled, saying she wouldn't. Rhea, relieved to see them getting along again, asked Jack if he was training here alone. He said he wasn't training, just doing it for fun. Rhea, however, remarked that she knew he really wanted to be a knight. He scoffed, asking if she really thought commoners like them could become knights so easily. He declared he would become a mercenary. Mercenaries might lack honor, but at least they were well paid. Rhea found it hard to believe that this future knight, who would one day become famous throughout the empire, once dreamed of being a mercenary. She said she honestly thought he would still end up becoming a knight. He challenged her, asking what she knew, saying she had no idea how difficult it was. Rhea acknowledged it was difficult but, smiling at him, said that if he tried hard, he could achieve it. She reiterated that she really believed he wanted to be a knight, asking if he wasn't. She kept insisting that if he kept working hard like this, he would surely get there, leaving him blushing slightly. Later, after washing the clothes and fetching water, Jack helped her carry them back. Rhea noticed he was acting as if he didn't care, but he was still looking out for Diana. He grumbled, but he definitely had a soft spot for Dana. After all, if he hadn't, back in the past, when no one else came forward, he wouldn't have thrown himself in to protect her. If chivalry meant anything, it was to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Rhea felt a cramp in her leg from walking too fast. Diana, calling to her, said she was tired and asked if Rhea could carry her. Rhea agreed, saying it was okay and she would carry her, just asking her to wait a moment. However, Jack suddenly turned to her and yelled, asking if she was trying to kill herself. She hadn't even eaten properly and was already weak. He then asked Diana where she thought she was going, but Diana insisted she wanted to stay with her sister. Jack let out a deep sigh, exasperated by their constant bickering. He then knelt down in front of Rhea. "What are you waiting for?" he asked, telling her to hurry up and get on his back. Confused, Rhea asked what ridiculous idea this was, telling him that no matter how strong he was, there was no way he could carry both of them. Or so she thought. Because in the next moment, she was already on his back, shocked that he had actually managed it, while Diana was on hers, celebrating happily. They continued on their way, and luckily, they didn't encounter anyone. Rhea thanked Jack, saying it must have been difficult. Blushing, he mumbled it was nothing. Rhea smiled slightly, thinking he was really a good boy. She called for Diana to enter the orphanage, but at that moment, she heard them both scream. Turning around, she realized it was the director of the orphanage, his expression grim. In a serious tone, he asked where they thought they were going at this hour. Diana screamed and grabbed Rhea, saying, "He's a scary old man. He's all dark, I don't like him." Rhea thought, of all people, we had to be caught by the principal for breaking curfew to fetch water. She told him they had gone to wash some clothes. The director asked how old she was. She replied she was 8 years old, wondering why he was asking. He murmured, "Good," then told them to get inside quickly, saying he wouldn't let it slide a second time. But Rhea thought he would probably just get drunk again. Diana, raising her head, asked if the scary old man was gone. Rhea, stroking her head, answered yes, he was gone now, so she shouldn't be afraid. In her past life, on the day Duke-led visited the orphanage, he rescued Diana and Jack, who were locked in the attic. He had then swiftly dealt with the director and punished the orphanage. That day was not far off now. If she wanted to protect Diana and the other children, she knew she needed to find strong enough evidence to get rid of the director. On the other hand, the knights arrived to report on the search for the Duke's missing daughter. One of them reported that they had searched all the orphanages and alleys within the territory but could not find her. The head of the House Elad, Duke Lad, ordered the search area to be expanded. From now on, they were to investigate every ship that docked in neighboring kingdoms. A few days prior to these events at the orphanage, Diana had vanished during a festival. Initially, the knights assisting in the search believed she was merely lost and would soon be found. However, the Duke, deeply concerned, mentioned that Tatsi had been neglecting his basic needs, neither eating nor sleeping for days, and questioned if Tatsi was organizing a protest. Tatsi quickly refuted this, stating his sole focus was finding Leda, Diana's nickname. The Duke affirmed the urgency of finding Diana but expressed his worry that Tatsi's current state rendered him ineffective, causing Tatsi to tremble. Tatsi declared he would reflect on his actions. Meanwhile, another knight watched this exchange with a calculating smile. He recollected his original, less malevolent intention, which was solely to cause minor difficulties for Tatsi by disseminating rumors concerning his removal from Leda's guardianship. However, the situation had escalated beyond his expectations, and to his delight, even better. Tatsi had completely lost the Duke's confidence. The Duke announced that Sid, Tatsi, and himself would head west, a broader search area, and instructed information be sent to Countess Marietta to join them there. A swift confirmation of understanding was received. Later that night, at the orphanage, while Diana slept soundly, Rhea made the decision to sneak into the director's office. She successfully opened the door and entered, reflecting on how long it had been since her last clandestine entry. She quickly began searching for whatever secrets the director was concealing. Rhea examined several papers, finding seemingly mundane expenses listed: food, water bills, books, toys. The orphanage ledger contained numerous suspicious financial discrepancies, but nothing that seemed like the director's primary secret. Closing her eyes, Rhea focused, utilizing mana flow to detect anything unusual. Her senses led her to a particular spot on the floor. Pulling back a rug, she discovered it wasn't just an ordinary carpet but an artifact imbued with a perception-blocking spell. Beneath it, a small door was revealed in the floor. Ria pondered why such a valuable item would be hidden in this dilapidated orphanage, concealing a door under the floor. Opening the door, she found a chest and managed to unlock it. Inside, she found more documents, though they seemed insignificant compared to the papers openly on the desk. She wondered what kind of operation the director was running that required such elaborate concealment. She then discovered a book containing records of children who had resided at the orphanage. In the comment column, names were written that seemed familiar. Suddenly, realization dawned. Ria remembered those names. During her time as an informant for Tarentum, these were the names of notorious criminals involved in slave auctions that had shaken the empire. A furious frown creased Ria's face, and she gritted her teeth, muttering that the director was a bastard. He was collaborating with kidnappers, selling orphanage children into slavery. Ria told herself to remain calm. Her priority was to copy the general ledger and transaction records. She planned to leave the copies in the office and send the originals as evidence to the Duke. Discovery was inevitable, but she needed to stall until the Duke's arrival. As Ria used mana to copy the book, she felt a strange wetness and became confused until she realized blood was dripping from her mouth. Stunned, Ria watched the blood flow uncontrollably. She realized her body was struggling to handle such intense mana usage at once. Fainting was not an option. The director must not find any evidence of her intrusion if he returned. Using magic, she quickly cleaned the blood drops from the floor. Hiding the evidence and remaining vigilant until the Duke arrived became her sole focus. After cleaning everything, Ria returned to her room. A few days later, the children were engaged in cleaning the orphanage. Ria was assigned to clean the window. Emily approached Ria, greeting her with a good morning. Emily inquired if Ria had slept well, and she replied affirmatively, then asked about Ria, noting that she had seemed unwell recently. Ria dismissed it as a minor cold, stating she was now fine. Emily seemed relieved and accepted her explanation without further question. Ria recalled the fever she had developed after her clandestine office visit but had recovered enough to use basic magic if needed. Turning to Emily, Ria thanked him for his concern. Just then, the director's booming voice echoed, accusing them of slacking off and calling them useless brats. He ordered them to stop chatting and resume cleaning. Emily, startled, apologized and hurried back to cleaning. The director cursed under his breath, complaining that his head was about to explode, mumbling something about the Duke of Elad, which immediately caught Ria's attention. She wondered if the Duke of Elad had finally arrived. Suddenly, the director pointed directly at Ria and ordered her to bring that new girl. Ria swiftly moved away, her mind racing. Should she flee now? But if she did, she might forfeit her chance to meet the Duke. If she was caught now, just like in her past life, he would lock her in the attic to hide her from the Duke. While she would eventually be found during the search, the Duke's resulting fury would punish all the children in the orphanage. This outcome had to be avoided at all costs. Ria located Diana, who was crying, her clothes covered in dirt. Ria knelt down, laughing reassuringly, and asked what was wrong. Diana explained she had fallen, gotten a sore spot, and apologized for dirtying her clothes, adding that her sister had washed them so carefully. Hugging Diana, Ria reassured her that everything was alright, telling her not to cry or feel bad. Anyone could fall, and clothes could always be washed again, so there was no need for tears. The director abruptly arrived, shouting at Ria for taking so long and demanding she bring the girl to him. He then noticed Diana and, with a sinister smile, remarked that was where she was hiding. He instructed Ria that since she had found her, she should bring Diana to him and stop dawdling. Alarmed, Ria knew she couldn't let him take Diana like this, even if it meant being locked away alone. She had to protect Diana until the Duke arrived. At that moment, Jack appeared, stepping between Ria, Diana, and the director. He ordered the director to back away, stating that he was scaring the children. Ria was surprised by Jack's sudden intervention. Turning to Ria, Jack asked if she was alright and if she was hurt. Ria confirmed she was fine. The director, enraged, called Jack an insolent brat and unleashed his anger on him, asking if Jack had a death wish. He seemed to relish watching Jack get hit and fall, unable to defend himself. Rhea desperately screamed Jack's name. The director then grabbed all three children and shoved them into the attic, slamming the door shut behind them. He called them arrogant little brats and ordered them to rot there for a while. Once the door was closed, Rhea got up and immediately asked Diana if she was hurt. Diana replied she was fine and then asked how her sister was. Rhea reassured her not to worry about her. Rhea then turned to Jack with concern, asking if he was okay. She began gently shaking him, trying to wake him, but he remained unconscious. Rhea realized this was serious. Jack's injuries appeared severe. Rhea knew she couldn't just leave Jack in that state. Frantically wondering how they could escape the attic, her eyes caught a sliver of light. Turning, she saw a window boarded up with planks of wood. She rushed towards it, attempting to dislodge the wood. When pulling failed, she began punching the planks, her thoughts racing. Jack's condition was deteriorating, and Dana was terrified. The Duke would eventually search for them, but there was no guarantee what might happen in the interim. Escape was imperative and needed to happen as quickly as possible. Finally, she managed to break off a small piece of wood. Though her hands were becoming bruised and battered, she continued pulling with desperate strength until two larger planks fractured, sending her stumbling backward. Realizing the gap was now large enough for her to squeeze through, Rhea peered out the window. The drop was immense. Making too much noise would attract attention, likely the directors first. Only one option remained. Diana began to cry, seeing the state of Rhea's injured hands. Turning to the younger girl, Rhea promised she would be right back. Offering a determined smile, she vowed to bring Diana's father, making it a promise. Until then, Rhea entrusted Jack's care to Diana. Crying harder, Diana screamed no, but Rhea, without a moment's hesitation, launched herself out of the window. Elsewhere, the Duke arrived at the orphanage with his knights. He remarked with disbelief that an orphanage existed in such a remote, mountainous area. The captain of the knights from the Duchy of Beluz, Bianca Marietta, reported that her search of the surroundings had yielded nothing suspicious. The Duke commended her efforts and ordered the director to be summoned. The director appeared, attempting to conceal his anxiety, expressing feigned surprise at such an esteemed guest's visit. The orphanage children were kneeling outside as instructed. The director stated he had gathered all the children as requested. Bianca leaned in and whispered to the Duke that during their earlier search, the director's behavior had been extremely suspect. His attitude towards the children and his evasiveness were red flags. The Duke agreed with her assessment. He turned to the assembled children and asked if any of them had seen a girl with silver hair and blue eyes. The director immediately barked at the children, ordering them to answer quickly. One child nervously replied that he didn't know, he had never seen such a girl. Internally, the director felt confident, recalling the fortune he spent installing anti-detection artifacts in the attic in his safe. Not even Duke Elad could easily uncover evidence. The Duke warned the child that lying would result in severe punishment. The child insisted she was telling the truth. Suddenly, both the Duke and Bianca registered a strange sensation. Bianca turned to the Duke, identifying it as an incredibly strong mana flow, far from a common phenomenon. The Duke confirmed he felt it too. His gaze shifted towards the director, unsettling the man. The Duke requested permission to look around the orphanage grounds. Moments later, following the mana signature, they discovered Rhea lying unconscious behind the orphanage building. Bianca wondered aloud why a child would be in such a place. Taking Rhea into her arms, Bianca noted the immense strength of the mana signature, puzzled they hadn't detected it sooner. However, the magic was chaotic, completely distorted and out of control. Bianca began using healing magic on Rhea, stating that immediate action was necessary, as leaving her in this state would endanger her life. The Duke consented. Just then, the Duke flinched, hearing Diana's voice screaming for him. She was visible at the attic window, shouting for her father with all her might. Recognizing her instantly, the Duke yelled for Diana to stay put and dispatched a knight to ascend and rescue her immediately. Thanks to Bianca's magic, Rhea regained consciousness. She tried to speak but saw the Duke standing directly in front of her. Relief washed over her, he had found Diana. The future was already significantly altered. Rhea quickly implored the Duke to help those still trapped upstairs, explaining that her friend Jack was injured and had been locked up with Dana. Pointing at the director, Rhea confirmed Bianca's unspoken question. Yes, Rhea stated, it was this person who did this. He was always cruel and tried to sell everyone as slaves. This accusation threw the director into a panic. Bianca stared darkly at him, asking if he was involved in the illicit slave trade. He vehemently denied it, calling it a lie and cursing Rhea, asking how she dared deceive the Duke. He lunged towards Rhea, intending to strike her, but Bianca reacted faster, grabbing his hand, twisting it painfully, and forcing him to the ground. Turning back to Rhea, Bianca asked if she was all right. Rhea confirmed she was. One of the orphanage children cried out Rhea's name, relieved she was safe, and asked where she had been. Rhea laughed softly, though concern filled her as she saw the children's frightened state. The Duke commanded silence, reminding them sternly that they faced punishment for their earlier lies, which terrified the girls anew. Rhea realized things were progressing much faster than she had anticipated. He had already met and interrogated the children. Now was not the time for relief. The evidence she had hidden needed to be presented. Rhea handed the documents to the Duke, asking him to examine them. She explained it was a secret ledger detailing all the children the director had sold. As the director sputtered denials about how she could possess such a thing, Rhea continued, stating there was evidence not only of slave trafficking but also embezzlement and other corrupt dealings. The director, she explained, never viewed them as human beings. The children had ignored Dana because they were threatened. The Duke acknowledged this, confirming that, just as Rhea said, the children had claimed never to have seen anyone like Diana. Rhea affirmed they were merely scared, they were just children doing what they needed to survive. With tears welling in her eyes, she begged the Duke to show mercy to the children. One of the girls apologized tearfully to the Duke, while another pleaded for his mercy. Taking the papers from Rhea's hand, the Duke asked why she was begging for her life, questioning if he had ever indicated he would harm her. He assured her he wouldn't hurt the children, telling her to stop crying. Surprised, Rhea looked up as he clarified that this meant he was willing to forgive the children's deception. Overjoyed, Rhea thanked the Duke profusely. He waved off her gratitude, stating that protecting children and defending the wronged was his foremost duty. He turned his severe gaze upon the director, declaring that he was the one who should face judgment. He ordered his knights to restrain the director and take him away immediately for interrogation. The desperate director shouted protests, claiming the Duke couldn't do this, but the Duke merely watched with a menacing expression as he was dragged away. Finally, Rhea felt she could breathe a sigh of relief. Her moment of peace was interrupted as Diana came running and leaped into her arms, surprising her. Rhea hugged her back tightly, glad Dana was safe, and asked if she was hurt anywhere, acknowledging how scary the ordeal must have been. Diana assured her she was okay and asked if Rhea was alright too. Meanwhile, one of the knights muttered about how the usually demanding young lady was acting so kind now. Another agreed, remarking that the girl, Rhea, was likely the reason Diana had remained relatively safe. The Duke extended his hand, gently calling Diana's name. He stated it was time to go home. Diana ran happily into her father's arms. He mentioned he had intended to scold her, but since she had managed not to cry and stayed strong, he would let it slide this time. Bianca noted that given the long journey ahead and the circumstances surrounding the orphanage's disposition, it would be best to depart promptly. Rhea realized this was truly the moment to part ways with Dana. Though she knew it was inevitable, she couldn't help feeling a pang of sadness as she looked towards Diana and her father. Diana, clinging tightly to Rhea, asked if she wouldn't be joining her. Turning back, Diana hugged Rhea fiercely. The Duke interjected, suggesting that perhaps it would be agreeable if Rhea came along too, a prospect that immediately brightened Diana's face. However, Rhea, mindful of not further altering the destined course of events, believed it was Jack, not her, who was meant to accompany Diana. Jack was the one who had been with Diana, even sustaining injuries while protecting her. The Duke conceded, saying it was acceptable. Once the injured child recovered, he would speak with him. His inquiry, however, would be about her own wishes, asking if she desired to come with them. Rhea considered this a generous offer, almost too grand for someone like herself. Yet, she felt she might be intruding on Jack's destined role. Diana, sensing Ria's hesitation, asked, confusion clouding her face, if Ria didn't want to go. Chuckling softly at Diana's perplexed expression and still uncertain of her true desires, Ria finally answered that she would go. Diana's face lit up with pure joy. Really, she exclaimed, then beamed, hugging Ria tightly, declaring how much she liked her and wished to be with her forever. Ria smiled, thinking she would first comfort Diana and ensure Jack's destined path remained intact. Her own future direction could be considered afterward. For now, this felt right. The Duke announced that the carriage would arrive shortly, and they should wait there momentarily. Night has approached, bowing deeply to Diana, expressing immense relief at her safety. Turning to Ria, he also thanked her for helping Diana, though a flustered Ria demurred, saying she had simply done what needed to be done. Tatsi addressed the Duke, accepting full responsibility for failing to protect Diana and offering a keepsake of his father's memories as a token of his remorse. He stated that even if stripped of his knighthood, he was resolved to protect Diana with his life. The Duke scoffed, calling him an idiot, remarking that only a noble like him would use a parent's memento in such a symbolic gesture. He ordered Tatsi to take his father's memories and return home, ceasing his self-flagellation. Ria recognized Tatsi, a knight adorned with a gem split by a Tazsidian sword. He would, in time, become Diana's stepfather and the vice-commander of the Lection Knights. A knight announced the carriage was ready. Ria was awestruck by its magnificence. The Duke instructed her to get in. Startled, she asked if she too was to ride in this carriage. He inquired if she was worried about space being cramped, but she clarified that wasn't it. He reassured her that a small child like herself would fit perfectly, so there was no need to worry about getting in. The interior was even more lavish. Feeling out of place in her ragged orphanage clothes, Ria found it surreal to be riding in such opulence. As they were informed of their imminent departure, Ria gazed out the window, watching her orphanage friends wave goodbye. She recalled her past life, only being able to watch enemies ride away in carriages. But now, the future had shifted. Perhaps, she could truly forge a new life. The Duke, noticing her reverie, asked her name. Confused, as she seemed distracted moments before, she answered when he repeated his question, stating her name was Ria, she had no surname, and she was 8 years old. He then posed one more question, asking if she had known Diana's true identity and if she recognized him. A wave of anxiety washed over Ria as she noticed his piercing gaze, wondering if he suspected her. The Duke mused internally that had they not witnessed her fall from the attic, had she been just another child among the orphans, they might have passed her by without a second glance. But this seemingly ordinary child had desperately clung to them, presenting irrefutable evidence, revealing wounds and clear signs of abuse. Contemplating the despair that had driven this child to such actions, he felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. He stated he didn't know the details, but he understood Diana was someone important. He then asked how Ria had managed to steal the evidence, how she knew what it was, or what the director was doing. She replied that her chore was cleaning the director's office, and she had stumbled upon it by chance, only realizing the orphanage's dark secret after overhearing a conversation between the director and some strangers. He remarked that she must have a rather troublesome habit. Ria's heart pounded. Was he disappointed? Did he perceive her as too cunning, regretting his decision to bring her alone? She stammered that she had acted solely because she believed the children's safety was paramount. But he pressed, asking if, despite being a child, mentally, Ria pleaded for him to believe her motives were purely to protect others. The Duke, however, thought she was sharper and more perceptive than he initially judged. They arrived at the inn. The Duke instructed that the children be taken to their rooms to wash and ordered the White Princess to be summoned. Countess Marietta arrived, inquiring why he had called for her. He thanked her for coming from so far and asked her to convey his regards to the Grand Duke. He then explained he needed her help, a potentially delicate request for a countess of the duchy. Could she stay with the children and care for them while preparations were made? She dismissed his concerns, stating that ensuring the children's safety was paramount, a request far from trivial. He expressed his gratitude. She said she would go upstairs to assist with preparations. Before leaving, she paused, mentioning there was something she wanted to check, but then smiled and waved it off, saying it was nothing. In their room, Ria savored the warmth of the bath and the honeyed milk, feeling utterly pampered. Turning to Diana, she noticed milk foam around her mouth. Diana giggled, pointing out Rhea had it too. Bianca entered, asking if they were ready and bringing clothes for them to change into. Rhea thanked her profusely for her kindness. Bianca waved it off, saying they could leave now. Rhea gasped, surprised, seeing a familiar knight, one who had been with the Duke since the orphanage. Bianca instructed them to change and come down for dinner. Suddenly, Bianca grasped Rhea's hand, noticing a scar. "Did the director do this too?" she asked, her voice hardening. Rhea hesitated, then admitted it was from the past. Bianca's teeth clenched in anger. "Just as I suspected, that despicable bastard." She lamented her lack of healing magic but promised to summon a cleric as soon as they reached Alicado. Rhea was overwhelmed, protesting that it was too much for someone like her, but Bianca insisted, stating it was natural to heal the wounded, there was no need to refuse. Rhea was touched by Bianca's genuine concern, feeling cared for as if it were Bianca's own burden. "Are you perhaps a magician?" Rhea asked, recalling Bianca's mention of healing magic. Bianca chuckled, explaining she wasn't a magician in the traditional sense but a magical swordswoman. Rhea was astonished. That title wasn't casually bestowed, it signified a knight who had mastered aura to a significant degree. Rhea then realized who Bianca was and asked, "Are you Lady Bianca?" Bianca confirmed, Bianca Marietta, born an illegitimate daughter of a humble viscount, but rose to countess through exceptional swordsmanship and battle magic. Bianca was Vacaladora, a legendary figure, a war hero Rhea had long admired. This very person stood before her. "Was it Lady Bianca who helped me when I fell from the attic?" Rhea asked, gratitude overflowing. Bianca brushed it off, saying she only did what was necessary. Tossing a cloth at Rhea, she asked if she was satisfied, adding that now that introductions were done, they should prepare for dinner. Rhea and Diana exchanged delighted smiles, confirming they were ready. Later, as they descended for dinner, Bianca announced to His Grace that she had brought the young ladies. The Duke thanked the Countess for her efforts, which she again dismissed as nothing much. Diana promptly sat down, pulling Rhea to sit beside her. Rhea hesitated, glancing at the Duke, unsure if it was appropriate for her to sit at the same table given their difference in status. The Duke, noticing her hesitation, simply instructed her to sit and eat. Rhea looked at the food, which appeared incredibly delicious, wondering how long it had been since she had a proper meal. A woman approached Bianca, whispering something. Bianca excused herself to the Duke, mentioning an urgent report. He inquired about its urgency and why she wouldn't eat first. Bianca explained that Her Grace had contacted her via communication channel, something urgent had arisen, requiring her immediate return to the duchy. The Duke expressed regret that she had to leave so soon, as he had planned to properly thank her at Cal's residence, and asked her to convey his gratitude to Her Grace for sending her from so far. Bianca acknowledged his thanks. Rhea wondered if Bianca would ever return. They had barely begun to connect, and now they were saying goodbye. Turning to Rhea, Bianca paused, then asked if Rhea would like to accompany her. Rhea was stunned. "Are you inviting me to go with you?" The Duke interjected, asking for clarification. Bianca confirmed, stating she wished to take Rhea with her. She explained that upon first seeing Rhea, she sensed considerable mana and magical talent, but Rhea's unfamiliarity with managing human mana had caused her body distress. Rhea needed someone to guide her talent, if Rhea was willing. The Duke questioned the suddenness of this invitation, stating there was no shortage of wizards in the Cal family capable of handling humans, and surely Bianca wasn't suggesting smuggling an imperial citizen into the principality without valid reason. Bianca assured him that was not her intention. She turned to Rhea, asking why she hadn't spoken for herself. Rhea hesitated, contemplating her options. Moments later, the carriage was departing. Rhea had chosen to go with the Duke, now in the carriage with a sleeping Diana nestled in her lap. She gazed at Diana, emotionally reflecting that her idol had asked her to join her. It felt like a dream. But then she remembered Diana clinging to her, crying, insisting her sister couldn't leave her behind. Rhea knew Bianca would be kind and she would witness the skill she so admired firsthand, but she had declined Bianca's offer. Bianca had understood, saying it was a pity, but her choice. Bianca added that if Ria ever wished to meet again, she should visit the Bella's duchy, as Bianca would mostly reside at the Grand Duke's residence, and mentioning Ria's name would ensure she could be found. Ria was thrilled, thinking that perhaps in the future, if she grew stronger and braver, she could meet Bianca again. Diana's deep attachment had swayed her decision. Leaving Diana was unthinkable. Of course, she couldn't deny a flicker of disappointment. Responsibility for Diana wasn't the sole reason for her choice. Her knowledge of governmental and imperial structures suggested staying within the empire was strategically wiser. Her past life's relentless struggle for recognition held no appeal. In this life, she would no longer be limited by others' expectations. She would live proudly, independently, leveraging her skills and future knowledge. As dawn broke, Ria realized morning had arrived, murmuring that she had only dozed off. She wondered if Countess Marietta was still en route to the Duchy of Belas. She knew little about Belas, only that the Duke of Belas would later become Diana's godfather and was renowned as the duchy's greatest wizard. His son, however, would surpass even him in fame, a genius unparalleled. Being with Duke Elad felt like witnessing the simultaneous rising of the sun and moon. She hadn't considered meeting that man. He would be the last man she saw outside the carriage before her death in her past life. Outside the carriage, the Duke, riding on horseback, called to Ria to wake Diana, announcing they had arrived home. Gazing at the mansion, Ria was awestruck by its grandeur. Near the main gate, a young boy came running and hugged Diana, tearfully asking where she had been and why she was arriving so late. It was Duke Elad's second son, Alan Elad. The maid began to weep.
Ooh,
Diana
mommy.
chirped happily that she had missed her mother immensely. Leah felt a sense of pride for successfully bringing Diana home, allowing the entire family to be reunited. Suddenly, Alan, who stood near Leah, scoffed and demanded to know who she was and why she was clinging to his sister. Leah was genuinely taken aback by his casual rudeness. The boy's shouting was loud enough for everyone to hear, and people immediately started to react.
No!
Diana, furious, rushed to Leah's side, shielded her with her small body, and told her jerk of a brother to back away from her big sis. Alan was not the only one surprised, even the Duchess was caught off guard. She expressed her shock, asking how her daughter had learned such words.
No!
Leah felt awkward and whispered to Diana, asking what was wrong and when she had picked up that kind of language. However, Diana stood her ground, refusing to budge. It was then that Leah remembered the orphanage director, and it became quite clear where Diana had learned such expressions. Leah told the child she shouldn't speak to her brother that way and explained that the director was a bad person who said bad things, adding that there was no need to imitate him. Just then, the Duke approached. He inquired if that scumbag was still causing problems and declared that he would not only force a confession but also cut out his tongue if necessary. The Duchess turned to her husband, urging him not to use such harsh language around the children. She suggested it would be better if he introduced her to the young lady he had brought with him. He explained that the girl's name was Leah and that she had consistently looked after Diana while she was at the orphanage. The Duke added that they were able to find and save the young miss entirely thanks to her. Diana hugged Leah tightly and declared that Leah was her princess. Diana refused to let go of Leah, while Alan pleaded with his little sister to come to him, even for a moment, because he had missed her so much. The little girl kept insisting Leah was a princess and that she was going to protect her. The Duchess thanked Leah for her kindness and assistance. Meanwhile, Alan was miserable because his own sister was ignoring him and getting angry, even though he had been worried sick about her. The Duchess instructed the servants not to waste any time and to begin preparing food and rooms for the girls. She added that they had to give their guest a proper welcome since her visit was tied to such a joyous occasion. Leah couldn't help but think, what kind of welcome? I don't need anything. I just want to become a court lady and get a job. Her ladyship told the maids to help the guests change and asked her daughter to show Leah around the castle. After a while, Diana led Leah into an enormous, fancy bedroom. Leah was shocked. Was this really just one room? An entire house could fit inside it. The little girl handed her a book of fairy tales and asked Lady Princess to read it aloud. Leah figured this was an excellent opportunity to demonstrate her abilities, especially since the maids were in the room. If they saw the girl could read fluently, perhaps, if she were lucky, they would make her the young lady's personal maid. The Duchess walked in to check if the main preparations were complete and noticed Leah standing there with a book. Diana happily announced that the princess had agreed to read her some stories, but the woman said, sorry, they'd have to put story time on hold. She needed to take her ladyship away for a bit. The little one started whining, saying she wanted to come too. The Duchess thought for a moment, then explained that since Diana and the princess would be playing there, they needed to get the room ready first. Diana quickly said she would handle it, so they should hurry back. Her ladyship took Leah by the hand and said they had received permission, they could leave now. Walking down the hall, Leah wondered why the Duchess was taking her somewhere. Then it struck her, she was just a commoner. It didn't matter that she had helped Lady Diana, she still didn't belong with the nobles. The Duchess stopped at a door and announced they had arrived. She noticed Leah was nervous and told her not to worry. Inside was a priestess who greeted her and guessed she must be Leah. The priestess explained that Countess Marietta had written about the girl in her letter, asking them to heal her wounds. Leah was surprised that their earlier conversation hadn't just been small talk, it turned out the Countess had actually kept her promise. She asked Leah to show her hands so she could examine the scrapes and bruises. The woman guessed it must be tough living with wounds like that and promised she would fix everything quickly and painlessly. A blue light glowed from the priestess's hand, illuminating the whole room. But suddenly, it faded out. The priestess cried out, "This can't be happening." The Duchess asked, worried, what was wrong. The priestess said she didn't know yet, but for some reason, her holy power wasn't working. This had never happened before. The Duchess and Leah sat there, thinking about the priestess's final words, that there was no way to heal her further. The woman tried to calm Leah down, saying that in their duchy, there were mages who could heal even better. Her Grace assured the girl they would find a solution. Leah said she wasn't worried at all, and the Duchess shouldn't stress about it either. On the outside, Leah looked completely calm, but inside, she was a mess. Everyone in the Empire is born with a blessing, but holy power didn't work on her, and that was as bad as it gets. So, the director had been right when he said there was something off about Diana, and now, Leah realized, perhaps about herself too. The Duchess called out to Leah, and when she turned around, handed her something sweet and tasty. Her Grace explained it was chocolate, a magical cure for all sadness. When the woman asked if she felt any better, Leah realized just who Duchess Ellard's kindness had been passed down to. She remembered that her grown-up son, Lucio, used to give her sweets whenever she was feeling down, and he had always asked the same thing, if she felt a little better now. Leah thanked the Duchess and said she really did feel better. The woman smiled and said, in that case, it was time for lunch. Leah couldn't believe her Grace was being so kind to a commoner like her. In the dining room, Leah thought to herself that while the Duchess was amazing, it was kind of harsh to invite her to a family dinner. It was scary there since Alan kept glaring at her with pure disgust. The boy was asking why a commoner like her was even sitting there. And right then, Diana offered her a bite of steak. Alan complained he didn't want to eat at the same table as this rude girl, while the little one kept suggesting more dishes for Leah to try. Leah thought her head was going to explode from all this chaos. Diana yelled at her brother, telling him not to mess with her princess. He called his sister Rumini and shouted that he hated her. Then he stood up, wiped his tears, and stormed out. Leah apologized for making the young master leave the family dinner. The Duchess said it wasn't her fault at all and that she should apologize for her son's rudeness. The lady explained the boy was still little, actually super shy, and that he refuses to eat veggies and still sleeps with a doll. Leah did not expect to hear such secrets about the future great knight of the Empire. The woman said the girl shouldn't worry about this anymore and should just move on to dessert. Even though the strawberry roll looked delicious, Leah apologized and politely turned it down. She explained she was already full. But the Duchess was surprised and pointed out Leah hadn't even eaten half of Diana's portion. Leah understood that back at the orphanage, she was always hungry, so her stomach got used to being empty, and she just couldn't eat much. Suddenly, the Duchess argued back that if Leah didn't eat well, she wouldn't grow, and soon Diana would be taller than her. That worked. Leah decided to try the roll because everyone knows there's always room for dessert. Out of nowhere, Leah blurted out how good the food was, and the Duchess bragged that their chef was top-notch. Seeing how much her big sis liked the dessert, Diana offered her another helping. Leah thought to herself that this moment, everyone around her laughing and chatting, was the happiest in her life. Meanwhile, somewhere far away, Alan was sitting alone, crying, his stomach aching from hunger. The next morning, the Duchess was giving the maids instructions about setting up the room. Diana came running up to her, yelling. Her mom asked her, all out of breath, if she had really run the whole way. But instead of answering, the little girl just dragged her toward Leah's room. There, the doctor reported to Her Grace that Leah had a fever, probably because her body finally relaxed after all that stress. He told the Duchess that the child needed rest, plus a special diet since her stomach was weak. The woman whispered an apology to Leah for not being attentive enough. Just then, someone knocked on the door and announced that the Archmage had arrived to see the lady, and she said to let him in right away. A young man, Tellan, greeted them, saying he had heard they needed some healing magic there. The madam said she had been looking for him to heal the child's wounds. The Archmage asked if he could examine Leah and noted she had a lot of scars on her body. The Duchess asked if it could be healed since, for some reason, holy power hadn't worked. He said that happens sometimes, explaining that when someone has a lot of mana, holy power is pretty much useless for them. The young man promised to restore Leah's mana flow but first needed to check her abilities. Her Grace gasped as the scars suddenly vanished, and she thanked Tellan, since, as always, he had lived up to her expectations. But instead of answering, the young man asked where the madam had found this child. A few days later, Duke Ellard returned home to his estate, where his wife greeted him. They greeted each other, and he thanked her for looking after the kids during such a tough time since he had left his wife all alone. But she understood, His Grace had so much to handle at that orphanage. The Duke asked how Leah was doing. His wife said Leah's fever was finally going down and that Tellan had stopped by and healed the girl's scars. The man pointed out how weird it was that holy power didn't work, but Tellan's magic healed Leah. His wife explained that Leah was full of really pure mana. She told her husband she barely managed to calm Tellan down. He was yelling his head off about how the girl was overflowing with pure mana. The young Archmage kept shouting he had never seen anything like it and begged Madame to bring Leah to his lab for some tests. Duke Ellard asked his wife if they should really keep Leah around their little daughter. The Duchess said that even though she hadn't known Leah long, she could already tell the girl was a good kid. She called her kind and gentle and pointed out that Leah never once complained about being sick. Now the woman understood why Countess Marietta was so desperate to take the girl with her. Maybe she saw a little version of herself in Leah, as she too had to go through bullying as a kid. She suddenly cried out, realizing she almost forgot, "You can't leave someone alone for too long." Right then, the door behind the Duke creaked. Leah peeked out from behind it. The Duke told her to stay put. She didn't have to get up at all. The startled Duchess rushed over and asked if Leah had really broken bed rest just to come see her. The Duchess asked why Leah came right now, but Leah hesitated and glanced at the Duke. He guessed the girl probably came to see him. Leah said she had a question. The man pointed out that this must be something really important since the girl showed up as soon as she started feeling a bit better. The Duchess warned them that Leah was still weak, so the talk had to be short, and she would wait in the other room for now. The Duke said Leah showed up just in time since he wanted to discuss something with her too. Leah tensed up. Was the Duke about to talk about what would happen to her next? The Duke said that thanks to the documents she handed over, they managed to arrest some high-ranking people involved in the slave trade. The evidence was so solid there was no way those people could get away with it. Leah asked what happened to Jack, her friend who got really hurt that time. The Duke told her that her friend had woken up, he was alive, healthy, and safe now. He said the boy was dreaming of visiting his friend in the duchy, and Leah wondered if they were really talking about the same Jack. Leah said the boy was really strong and talented. He never stopped training at the orphanage. And when the director beat him, he just stood there and took it, not even shedding a tear. She promised that Jack would make a great knight and if the Duke just spent some time with him, he would see it for himself. The Duke told Leah to relax, he had already given the orders about the boy. When Leah started thanking His Grace, he pointed out that what really mattered now was what Leah planned to do next. That question caught her off guard. So the Duke explained that all this time, she had only ever worried about other people. That's why he wanted to know what Leah herself wanted. Leah thought about whether anyone had ever asked her that before. Then she said she wanted to serve the young lady. He reminded her that Countess Marietta had already told her she had a huge amount of mana. And the mage who healed Leah said her mana wasn't just pure but also super strong. That's why magic worked so fast on her. The Duke said that maybe Leah didn't realize it, but with mana that powerful, she had a ton of potential, and she would need a mentor to learn how to control it. He said there are a ton of pro mages in the duchy, but Leah could pick any field of study she wants. The man added he would support whatever she decides. Leah asked if that means if she says no, they will just send her back to the orphanage. Duke Ellard was caught off guard and asked her to clarify. Leah replied, she just wants to work here as a maid. The girl knew the Duke's offer was generous, but she didn't really have a choice. If she accepts and lets a noble family take her in, she will basically be their subject for life. That totally messes with her plan to grow up, become independent, and leave this place. But right now, finding Jack was way more important. She said out loud she would be great at serving. She can bring food, make beds, even read to the young lady. Plus, she's good at cleaning, she did it all the time at the orphanage. The Duke told her she's free to do whatever she wants. The girl started showering his grace with thank yous. Leah said goodbye to the Duke and headed to her room. She kind of got what she wanted, but now she just felt uneasy inside. But she had already made up her mind not to rely on anyone and to carve out her own path. Leah got so lost and thought she didn't notice Alan blocking her way. When they bumped into each other, the boy yelled at her to watch where she was going. He also wanted to know what she was doing in his dad's office. Leah mumbled it was kind of hard to explain. Alan shouted he didn't want her lies. Wasn't his mom and Diana enough for this shameless girl? He grabbed Leah, demanding to know what she was up to, and suddenly realized she was so skinny, just skin and bones. Alan pulled away from her in disgust and muttered, she shouldn't get cocky just because Diana likes her. In her head, Leah apologized to Jack for using him as an excuse and told Alan her friend would be coming to the palace soon. The boy was surprised. Did this girl even have friends? Leah said she has known Jack since their days at the orphanage. He's kind, strong, and reliable. He even helped save the young lady, and someday he'll make an amazing knight. Suddenly, Alan tucked a stray lock of Leah's hair behind her ear, saying her hair was all messy. She thanked him, but inside she was like, wait, what was that about? The boy asked why Leah looked so pale, like she had just seen a ghost. Out of nowhere, they heard footsteps nearby. Jack called out to Leah, said it had been a while, and asked how she was feeling. Leah bombarded her friend with questions. How was he? Did anything still hurt? Then she suddenly pulled back and said maybe she was being too much, and Jack must be tired from the trip. Out of the blue, Alan asked Leah if this was her so-called famous friend. Jack and Alan locked eyes, both giving each other the cold stare. Leah really didn't like this. Jack probably already knew Alan was the Duke's son, but this tense vibe was seriously bothering her, especially since the guys used to be best friends. She thought, well, boys always fight first, then become friends, right? So things will totally work out later. She chirped to Jack that she was super happy to see him and would totally give him a tour of the castle. Just then, Surtees walked up and greeted the young master. Alan snapped, calling Surtees a jerk for not keeping an eye on the young lady, and now acting like nothing happened while still serving the family. Alan said his master, likely referring to his own father or a previous sentiment, was right, peasants really are all the same. Surtees replied that the young master had every right to be mad at him. Alan snorted in disgust, turned around, and walked off. Leah thought, well, that was pretty rude of him, but she already knows how much he actually cares about his little sister, so honestly, it's probably for the best that he's leaving right now. Just then, some young knight walked up to Surtees with a smirk and asked if someone had messed with him again. He added that Surtees shouldn't get cocky, even if the Duke took pity on him and suspended him from duty for a few days as punishment. Leah guessed, judging by his uniform, that this stranger was a knight. The guy asked Surtees if he really thought that was a light punishment for such a serious screw-up. Surtees said he didn't think so, and the deputy commander, the smirking knight, was shocked by that answer. Surtees explained he totally understood he had messed up his duties, then he called the other guy the deputy commander and asked if maybe he was partly to blame for what happened too. That clearly ticked off the young man, Sid Valeri. He yelled, "How dare Surtees say that?" Had he forgotten who he was talking to? At that moment, Leah started to wonder if something shady was going on and maybe someone here was involved in the young lady's disappearance. Surtees asked Sid to stop. It wasn't the place, there were kids around. Sid Valeri just smirked and said he had gotten so caught up in the conversation he hadn't even noticed. He stepped right up to Jack and said the kid was probably already dreaming about a high rank just because His Grace took pity on him and let him join the order. Surtees asked the deputy commander to quit picking on the kid. Sid Valeri shot back sarcastically that he was really touched and said Surtees must know this brat pretty well if he was defending him like that. He threw in that the boy wasn't even worth a couple of his words and told Jack he had better stay out of his sight from now on. Surtees apologized to Leah for having to witness all that and asked if she was scared. Leah told him everything was fine, so Surtees said he would go introduce Jack to His Grace. He wished Leah a good day, but then Leah called out to Sir Knight again and asked why the deputy commander talked to him like crap. Surtees explained it was all because of what happened when the young lady disappeared. It was just a normal day, he was supposed to guard the young miss like always, but then the deputy commander came up to him. Sid Valeri said Surtees was off duty that day. At first, Surtees just thought it was a schedule change, but soon he started feeling something was off, so he went after the knights escorting Diana, but he was too late. By the time he got there, the young miss was already gone. Leah shouted, "So that means it's not Sir Knight's fault at all." But Leah still didn't get why the deputy commander lied to Surtees. Jack asked if Sir Knight was really telling the whole story and not leaving anything out. And Leah yelled, "How can you even ask that about Sir Surtees?" The young man said he had told everything straight up. Plus, the deputy commander had had it out for him for a long time, back when he volunteered in the war. His Grace really praised Surtees for taking out the enemy undercover. The deputy commander hated that, and he has been making trouble for Surtees ever since. Surtees admitted being a knight is a huge honor, but sometimes he wonders if the deputy commander is right and he doesn't belong here. That's when Leah yelled at the top of her lungs, "Are you crazy, Sir Knight? That jerk's the one who doesn't deserve to be a knight, not Mr. Surtees." Jack and Surtees were both shocked by Leah's outburst. But she just added that a knight should never say stuff like that. Then she asked why he didn't tell the Duke about the deputy commander setting him up. Surtees said he didn't want to upset the Duke or cause him trouble, since the deputy commander had served under him for a long time. Leah said that if he really cared about the Duke, he had to tell him everything. There's no way you can keep a dangerous guy like that around. Surtees asked sadly if His Grace would really believe the words of a lowly knight, especially since he had no proof. He admitted it was a dirty move and went against his honor but told Leah she should try to see things from his side. Leah replied that she totally understood Sir Knight, he had his reasons for doing what he did. She apologized to Surtees for yelling at him, she just lost her temper over what happened with the young lady. The young man assured her it was fine. So Leah said she still had a lot to do and that Surtees and Jack should go see the Duke. Leah ran off. As she ran, she kept wondering why Jack gave up so easily. Turns out the other knights treated the boy no better than a servant. Sure, he was a commoner, but he didn't deserve to be treated like that. Leah blamed herself for living in comfort while Jack had to suffer such awful humiliation, and she hadn't even noticed. But now she couldn't just let things slide. If she did nothing, that scumbag would stay by Diana's side. Leah decided she would gather proof of all the deputy commander's crimes, it was her duty. A few days passed, and Leah got lost in the daily grind. She ran errands for the maids and helped out around the house. She actually liked doing this kind of work. The maids praised Leah, even though she was new to the manor, for being so polite, hardworking, and reliable. They said she was pure gold, not just a regular girl. So Leah had been working as a maid in the duchy for a week now, and she was really enjoying it. The other maids were super friendly and welcoming, so she fit right in. But the best part of the job were moments like these. A girl named Anna, who worked in the kitchen, called out to Leah. She asked if all the chores and worries were the reason Leah hadn't come by to see her. When Leah tried to argue, Anna handed her a piece of fresh apple pie. Leah asked if she knew any interesting gossip about Deputy Commander Valeri. Now, let's hear a bit about Count Valeri's family. They're a noble house that has played a key role in the lexicon knights for ages. The head of the family is currently one of Duke Ellard's closest advisors. His heir, Cid Valeri, holds an important position in the order. Cid probably thought he was better than everyone else from the start. But then this new guy, Certes, a commoner, showed up and instantly got under Cid's skin. On top of that, Certes is the young master's sword instructor, so it's no wonder Alan is acting so rough. Leah got so lost in thought she didn't even notice when the Duke and Duchess walked up to her with Diana. The little one greeted her mother, who smiled back and asked how the girls were doing. Diana chirped that everything was fine, and Leah stood up and welcomed their graces. Diana hugged her mom. Then the Duke scooped her up and laughed, asking if she had forgotten about her dad. The little one asked her dad to read with her, and he said he would love to. Leah watched all this with curiosity, and it took a couple of tries, but the Duchess finally managed to get her attention. Suddenly, Leah remembered one of the maids had asked her to deliver a package. So she asked the Duchess if she could go. Her Grace said yes and told her to hurry but to be careful. For some reason, the Duchess watched Leah leave with a worried look. On the way to the training grounds, Leah thought about how she needed to tell Jack and Certes everything she had learned. Maybe then the knight will change his mind and tell his Grace everything. Suddenly, Leah heard some boys yelling, telling that brat not to even think about touching their wooden swords. Leah looked closer and saw Jack surrounded by kids his age. They were mocking him, saying that even though Sir Valeri calls him a student, he will never be one of them. Besides, who would take him as an apprentice anyway? Only that loser Certes. One of the boys asked what was up with Jack's angry look. Was he trying to start a fight or something? Then he swung and punched Jack right in the face. The boy shouted that trash like him only learns from a fist. Leah ran up to Jack. He asked what she was doing there, and she said she couldn't just stand by and watch her friend get beat up. Leah snapped, asking if that's really how Jack greets a friend. Another boy walked up and asked who was with Jack. Was she just another lowborn brat? Leah shouted that the boys here were total cowards since ganging up on one person is just plain unfair. She added that acting like that isn't worthy of future knights. And anyway, the Duke himself made Sir Certes a knight, gave him a title and land. How can they disrespect his Grace like that? One of the boys said Certes was just a former mercenary who used to kill people. Leah shot back, asking if there's some law against making commoners or ex-mercenaries into knights. Unlike nobles, who learn to handle weapons from childhood, regular folks spend their whole lives just trying to survive, find shelter, and get food. As Leah was saying those weaklings were nothing compared to Jack, Alan showed up and asked what was going on. The boys rushed over to him, whining that Jack called them dust and said they couldn't even compare to a commoner. Leah thought to herself that these idiots still didn't get it and just ran off to complain. Alan asked if they were telling the truth, and Leah just nodded, looking pretty pleased with herself. She offered to prove they were worse than roadside dust. Then she told one of the guys to come closer and said to Alan, if she wins, he has to do whatever she wants. Leah suggested her opponent grab a wooden sword, no way he was fighting her barehanded. The boy snapped back that girls shouldn't act so smart. Jack shouted to his friend that he should be the one fighting, but Leah shot back that she wants to take responsibility for her words. The boy asked if she was really going to fight without a weapon, and Leah replied, yeah, it's pretty unfair of her. She picked up a hairbrush and said she'd fight with that. Alan freaked out, like, what even is that? Leah explained, it's the Duchess's hairbrush. Alan yelled, that's not what he was asking. He wanted to know if she was seriously going to fight with that thing. Leah said she never lies. Suddenly, Alan yanked Leah's opponent over by the ear and warned him not to hurt her or try anything stupid. Then he told the boy to get in position and announced that if anyone says stop, they both have to stop fighting. Leah rattled off that everyone needs to chill out, it's time to fight. Then Alan gave the signal to start. The boy thought he'd love to teach this cocky girl a lesson. He figured she was scared, so he decided to make the first move. But he totally didn't expect her to smack him right in the face with the hairbrush. Nobody there saw that coming from Leah. Everyone was in shock. Leah pointed out that she won. Then she asked Alan if he would keep his promise and if he would grant her wish. Now, let's jump to the future, where the author tells us about the Duke's garden. Leah stumbled upon it while running errands. Hardly anyone ever goes there. After staying at the Duke's house, her body got so much stronger that she could finally start mana training. This garden was the perfect spot, so she knelt down, put her hands on the ground, and focused. And after a few minutes, the tree was covered in fresh green leaves. Leah smiled to herself, thinking that was way easier than she expected. Plus, this garden turned out to be useful to Leah for something else. A man's voice asked her what she was doing there. The deputy commander, Sid Valeri, guessed that the little brat used the young master to lure him in. Leah admitted it was true, and the deputy commander was shocked. A kid that young, already so sneaky. He said she should thank the young lady every day for letting her live in such luxury. Leah pointed out that if you think about it, she should really be thanking him, not Lady Diana. He asked what she was talking about, and Leah explained that if Sir Valeri hadn't lied to Sir Surtees, she never would have met the young lady. The young man got mad, saying that was nonsense. A little kid, but already a pro at lying. Leah asked if it was really worth risking the young lady's safety just to mess with Surtees. Sid Valeri asked if she was really threatening him with no proof. Did she have a death wish or something? He yelled that it was all made up and no one would believe a regular maid or Sir Surtees, who was born a commoner. Leah shot back that it's up to the Duke to decide who to trust, not them. The deputy commander called her a worthless little worm who only gets aristocrat scraps. Suddenly, the sound of heels echoed through the room. It was Duchess Ellard. She ordered everyone to stop immediately. She demanded to know what was going on, and Sir Valeri shoved Leah aside. Then he smiled at the Duchess and said nothing was happening, that it wasn't what it looked like. Out of nowhere, the Duke showed up and told Sir Valeri to just quit making excuses already. The author interjects, I bet you guys are just as shocked as the deputy commander right now. While Sid Valeri was trying to convince His Grace it was all a misunderstanding, the Duchess went over to Leah, checked if she was okay, and helped her up. Leah smiled and said she was fine, but inside she was thrilled. Everything was going exactly as planned. One day during tea, Leah told the Duchess she had gone for a walk and spotted some green sprouts in the backyard garden. The Duchess was surprised. She thought the ground was still frozen, but Leah said maybe spring was finally coming. Leah knew the Duchess cared about her husband's health, so every day at a set time, she would walk with him outside. So if you told the Duchess about an interesting spot ahead of time, she would definitely take him there. Leah was ready in case things went off script. She had planned to tell the Duke everything herself if needed, but it all worked out perfectly. The deputy commander yelled that Surtees set him up on purpose to frame him. The Duchess asked if this was really a trap. Did Sir Valeri also order the purchase of the Perrin mine? Leah, or information she provided, revealed he didn't even know the budget of the Lexicon Knight Legion. Sid Valeri was stunned. How did this little brat know about that? Then His Majesty, the Duke, called for the guards and ordered Sir Valeri arrested, promising to decide his punishment later. Alan happened to overhear the deputy commander begging the Lord for a second chance. Alan was stunned as he watched his teacher and mentor get arrested. Now, let's rewind to when Alan was asking Leah what all the fuss was about. He asked what Leah wanted, and she said she wanted to meet with Deputy Commander Valeri. Leah pointed out that if it was too hard for Alan to set up a meeting with his teacher, he didn't have to do it. Alan got annoyed, saying it was no big deal, he just didn't get why she even wanted to meet him. But Leah said she couldn't explain yet. Besides, it didn't matter since the young master had already promised, so he finally agreed. Leah smiled and said she didn't expect anything less from the young master. Alan thought that even though he agreed, he still had no idea why she was asking for this. So he decided to hide and watch the meeting spot. The Duchess told her husband they would go to the palace with Leah to calm down after what happened. The Duchess and Leah were heading back. Suddenly, the woman said she wouldn't ask Leah what happened, but she would scold her for being reckless. She told Leah not to do anything like that again. Leah promised she wouldn't and apologized for the trouble. And she thought to herself how good it felt to finally get that off her chest since she knew what would happen to both the Valeri and Ellard families. In her past life, Master Trent found Leah when she was 10, and to prove herself useful, Leah learned stealth and combat magic. She read every document and newspaper she could find at the guild. So one day, she stumbled across a report about the Valeri family case. That family had tricked the Ellard Dukes with help from the deputy commander, who was stealing from the order's budget. The case went to court, but with the stolen money, Sir Valeri bought the Perrin mine, where they later found diamonds. Because of that, the deputy commander could bribe a ton of people, and the trial turned into a nightmare for the Ellard family. Leah thought to herself how great it was that she knew about this now. If she acted fast, she could actually fix it. She was sure this was her chance to repay the Duke for his kindness. Just then, the Duchess took her hand and told her to just follow along, no questions asked. Turns out the Duchess brought her to the magical tower of Ellard Duchy. The Duchess and Leah walked into the lab. People were busy working inside. Someone asked the Duchess what brought her there. She said she came because of the child. Tellin promised to heal her. Could they call him over? When the Archmage, Tellin, finally showed up, he lit up and shouted that his student had come. He yelled that his waiting paid off. And when the Duke said Leah didn't want to be his student, Tellin just couldn't believe it. Leah had no idea what kind of lessons they were even talking about. The Duchess reminded Tellin they were only there for healing. At first, he complained that every time they met, Leah was always hurt. But then he just sighed and said, "Well, what can you do?" Tellin finished his work. Leah thanked him from the bottom of her heart and wondered if he was the only one who could actually heal her. She realized he was the one who had erased her scars while she was unconscious. The amount of mana this Archmage had really impressed her. Meanwhile, the other mages surrounded Leah with gifts and attention. Someone handed her a mana measuring orb. Someone else offered her candies that could keep you full for 2 days. Tellin told everyone to stop, saying they were scaring the kid, and asked Leah if she liked dolls. He explained he made them during an experiment and invited her to come upstairs to his lab and check them out. Even though it would take a while to get there, Leah asked why nobody just used teleportation magic. Everyone around started laughing, and Tellin said that was honestly a kid's question. Leah got really embarrassed. So the young man explained that magic isn't that simple. Even if you use the right kind of magic, you still have to manage your mana well and train your focus. You got to know the formulas, draw magic circles and symbols, and memorize the spells. Leah was surprised that mages needed so many skills since when she learned magic from her master, she only learned spells and how to control her mana well, which is why she could actually use it now. Leah asked if just reading the spells out loud was enough for magic, and Tellin just laughed. He said that's nowhere near enough. Even a royal court mage can't use magic like that. Leah started wondering if everything she thought she knew about magic was actually wrong. On the way back, the Duchess told Leah she was glad the treatment was over so quickly, and Leah nodded in agreement. But inside, she thought the pain was nothing compared to the thoughts now eating away at her mind. Leah knew the only Archmage on this continent was the ruler of the Bellis Archduchy, the Archduke Bellis himself, so she couldn't figure out who that person was, the one who used magic without spells or circles. Leah guessed that if Tellin was right, maybe she really was a once-in-a-millennium genius. On one hand, that sounded insane, but on the other, in 8 years, her master had never even told her his name. Leah's world was limited to the orphanage, the streets, and Torrentum. But the Spy Guild was supposed to get all the world's information. So Leah grew up believing there was nothing she didn't know. Only after she died and came back did she realize some of her past might have just been an illusion. The assistant told the Duke that all the elders were already gathered in the council hall, but the Duke just called them a bunch of lazy slackers. The secretary guessed they were probably in chaos right now. But the Duke clarified that everyone was there except for Chairman Valeri. After all, his son had been arrested. Plus, the council had been called together. Knowing Count Valeri's temper, he was probably boiling with rage by now. In his mind, the Duke spoke to his father, blaming his lack of backbone for letting the Council of Elders stay in power for so long. Because of that, the young Duke had to go to war at 18, fighting for his title and his right to rule. After that, he got the nickname Cold-Blooded Demon of the Empire. And with support from other nobles, he took the title from his predecessor. But by then, the elder's claws were sunk so deep into Ellard Duchy there was no way to pull them out. Now the Duke finally had a chance, and he couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces. The guards announced that the head of the duchy had arrived for the council. As soon as the Duke asked everyone to take their seats, Count Valery started shouting without any shame. He demanded to know on what grounds they had arrested his son, the deputy commander of the knights, and thrown him into the dungeon. His Grace asked how the Count even found out about it since there hadn't been any official announcement yet. He added that the Count was way too interested in the duchy's internal affairs and way too hot-headed. The Duke asked Surtees to bring in the prisoner. The Count freaked out, demanding to know what was going on, saying, "You can't treat a noble knight like that." The Duke told him not to make him laugh. Since when was Sir Sid Valery a noble knight? He turned to the prisoner and asked him directly if he had kept his oath and stayed true to a knight's honor. The Duke repeated his question, "Does he really deserve to be called a knight?" Everyone at the council started whispering, wondering why the deputy commander was staying silent. But the Duke said now he wanted to ask the vassals of House Ellard. He reminded them that a lot of them probably still remembered the recent hardships the young lady went through. Count Valery jumped in and yelled that it was all that scumbag Surtees' fault. He was in charge of Lady Diana's security back then. One of the guards said that on that day, Sir Sid Valery ordered Surtees' squad to stay on standby, even though they were supposed to be on a secret protection detail. Other guards added that Sir Valery told them that since His Grace had put Surtees in charge of security, they didn't need to guard the lady unless they got new orders. He went on, saying that after the lady disappeared, he warned everyone not to say anything that might piss off the Duke. The Duke said the whole thing was just laughable. And suddenly, Count Valery jumped to his feet. He slapped his son and shouted, calling him an idiot and a lunatic for risking the young lady's safety like that. The man demanded to know how the kid even dared to call himself the heir of House Valery, loyal to House Ellard. The Count declared that from now on, this young man was no longer his son, and he begged the Duke not to doubt the Valery family's loyalty since their disgrace of an heir acted on his own. The Duke asked if buying the Perrin mine with Lexicon Knights funds should also just be chalked up as another one of Sid Valery's stunts. The Duke shouted that from this moment on, he was stripping the Count of all his vassal titles, and Count Valery begged for a second chance. Cries echoed from the hallway, pleading for His Grace to show mercy. The Duke announced that he was planning to head to the capital next week, so he wanted to throw a small banquet before leaving. Meanwhile, Leah was out for a walk in the courtyard with the Duke's family. Smiling, she said that spring had finally, definitely arrived. The Duchess added that it was the perfect weather to be outside. Then she asked Leah how she was feeling, and Leah answered that thanks to the Duke's family, she was doing great. After all, they had gone out of their way to spend time with her, even though House Valery had already gotten the punishment it deserved. Still, it seemed like the Duke and Duchess were worried the whole incident might have left a dark mark on her heart. Living in the Duke's house, Leah had noticed more than once just how kind her Grace really was, always sharing her warmth and light with everyone around her. Suddenly, Leah realized things were getting risky. She had promised herself she wouldn't get attached to anyone. She needed to stay firm in her decision. The Duchess told her husband she would be leaving for a bit today to pick out a dress for the reception. His Grace replied that he had started prepping for the banquet, and if they went to the capital, they might not have time to meet with all the vassals. Leah wondered if the Duke and Duchess were talking about her trip to the capital. The Duchess asked if Leah had ever been to the capital, and Leah said, not even once. But then she remembered, in the past, the Duchess died because of that trip. Her life was actually super short. After getting married, she stayed at the estate to raise the kids, then moved to the capital and died less than a year later. No one knows the exact cause, but rumor has it she was bedridden for a long time, so she must have been pretty sick. That's why Leah was surprised when they met. The Duchess looked perfectly healthy. Maybe it was something mental. The Duchess came from a poor, run-down count's family, basically a commoner. The vassals didn't approve of her. Moving to the capital would just make the pressure on her worse, so Leah had to stop the trip from happening. But how do you forbid the lady of the house from joining society events? The Duchess suggested she and Leah just have a girls' day. Knight met them by the carriage after a while and announced he would be escorting the Duchess and the young ladies today. When Knight helped the Duchess into the carriage, he turned to Leah and thanked her, stating he was deeply indebted to her. He described Leah as intelligent and capable, someone who could manage things herself, but offered to happily return the favor if she ever needed assistance. Suddenly, a knight instructed Jack not to be afraid, to stop hiding, and finally come out. Jack shyly greeted Leah, his friend. He mentioned that Mr. Knight had found him so talented that he decided to take him on as an apprentice. Leah rushed over to hug Jack and congratulate him. Jack thanked her, which surprised Leah. "What for?" she asked. He replied that it was because of her that he was on the path to becoming a knight. Leah noticed Jack's ears were slightly red, and she felt awkward as well. After all, she already knew her friend was destined to become one of the Empire's top 3 knights anyway, but she couldn't say that aloud. So, she simply responded that she had no doubt Jack would have succeeded on his own, even without her help. Jack thanked her again, quickly blurted out that she should get in the carriage, and hurried away. Leah privately thought that whenever Jack acted that way, it reminded her he was still just a kid. The carriage set off. Leah couldn't help but notice how smooth the ride was, considerably softer than the one she had arrived in. Suddenly, the Duchess handed Leah a little blue pouch. It turned out to be full of candy. The Duchess said it was nice to have something sweet before going shopping. Leah thanked the Duchess, and the candy really was delicious. While Leah was eating, the Duchess watched her with a smile, and Diana called her little sis a cutie. Just as Leah started wondering what was happening, the carriage stopped, just as she had anticipated. The Duchess and Diana stepped out with perfect elegance. Leah considered simply jumping off the step, as the ground didn't look that far down. The next second, Jack's voice called out, asking if she wanted to take his hand. Leah thanked him and remarked that he was already acting like a real knight. Right then, Diana ran up and playfully bit both Jack and Leah on the hands. The Duchess barely managed to pull her daughter away while Diana kept yelling that she was just biting her little sister, referring to Leah. Leah asked Jack if it hurt too much, but he shook his head and said it was just a little kid's bite. Diana shouted at Jack to stop looking to her sister, and Leah realized things couldn't continue this way. Leah spotted a cotton candy stand and thought, "That's exactly what we need right now." Leah, Diana, and the Duchess walked into a fancy clothing boutique, munching on their cotton candy. Leah privately thought that she had never been anywhere this luxurious before. While they were looking at the clothes, the shop assistants asked the Duchess who she was shopping for. She said, for all of them, and told Leah and Diana it was finally time for some fun shopping. A few minutes later, Leah was standing in a new dress, whispering to the Duchess that perhaps the staff had misunderstood her. She complained that the boutique workers kept measuring her and selecting more outfits for her. The Duchess laughed and said that everything Leah was wearing now actually belonged to her. Leah wanted to protest, but the Duchess told her it was already too late. Just then, Diana ran up to Leah, her big sister, and asked if she was dressed yet. Seeing Diana's new look, Leah started praising her profusely, saying she looked amazing, like a fairy. Diana complimented Leah's outfit too, so Leah suggested Diana sit down and wait while their mother picked out clothes. Suddenly, some customer in the boutique started yelling, grabbing everyone's attention. Even Leah had to turn around. The loud customer turned out to be a girl demanding the clothes she had picked out a week ago. A shop worker explained that the customer hadn't paid a deposit back then. The angry girl turned to Leah and snapped, asking what she was staring at. Leah said she was just looking around but privately thought how embarrassing it was to make a scene in a place like this. Suddenly, a woman walked up to the irritated girl and called her Letitia. She told her daughter to calm down, pointing out that the Duchess was here and there was no way she would make a good impression at the banquet if she continued this behavior. Letitia listened to her mom, and they headed for the exit. But before leaving, the girl shot Leah a look that could kill. That glare sent a chill down Leah's spine, and she couldn't help thinking how bold kids were these days. The day of the banquet finally came, and Leah and Diana were all dressed up and ready. The Duchess exclaimed how adorable the girls looked, remarking they could be sisters. Leah became curious and asked why the Duchess treated her like she was her own daughter. The Duchess replied that Leah was precious and important to the ducal family, and she hoped Leah would stop feeling like she was a burden. Suddenly, Diana called out to Leah, her sister, and asked her to come closer. Leah didn't suspect a thing until Diana clipped a jeweled hairpin into her hair. Stunned, Leah looked at Diana, then asked the Duchess if she was really allowed to wear something so expensive. The Duchess said yes, especially since it was a gift. Diana squealed that it looked perfect on Leah, making her even prettier. Leah thought the accessory actually matched her pink hair and new dress really well. She felt like all of this, the new dress, the pretty hairstyle, the kindness from the Duchess, would vanish like a dream when she woke up. The Duchess and the girls stepped out into the hallway where Alan, the young master, was waiting for them. He grumbled that finally his mother and Diana were ready. Suddenly, Alan's eyes went wide with shock. He shouted, "What's that on your head, Leah?" She explained it was just a gift from Diana. Alan slapped her and yelled, asking if she even knew what that item was. The Duchess was furious at her son's behavior and demanded he apologize immediately, stating it was a gift and Leah had done nothing wrong. Alan yelled at Leah, telling her he hated her for showing up in that house. He spun around and stormed off, the Duchess shouting after him, but the boy didn't even slow down. Leah, her voice almost breaking, told the Duchess she didn't understand what she had done wrong. The Duchess explained that none of this was Leah's fault. It was just that Alan had given that hairpin to Diana for her birthday, so he mistakenly thought Leah had knighted it from Diana. The Duchess apologized and said she should have been more careful but promised she would punish her son. Leah protested, saying it wasn't necessary and everything was fine. So, the Duchess suggested they head to the banquet hall. The Duchess said she and Diana would join them a little later and asked if Leah could go ahead and wait for them there. Meanwhile, Leah was thinking she should try to apologize to Alan. She understood that he genuinely loved his sister and cared about her a lot. In the banquet hall, someone announced that Baron Jude's carriage had arrived at the estate. But things inside that carriage were tense. Letitia was causing a bit of a scene. Her father asked her to calm down, but she complained that she wasn't wearing the dress she wanted. The Baron told her to stop fussing and fix herself up so she would make a good impression. After all, ever since the vassals from the Valerie Count's house were dismissed, there were several open positions in the Duke's family. He reminded her that the Duke's daughter was about her age, so if she made an effort, their family might make it through this situation. The Baron's wife said the whole incident with Sir Valery started because of something a young maid, one the Duke's daughter cared about, had said. The Baron replied that those were just excuses, everyone knew Duke Ellard never liked Count Valery anyway. His wife pointed out there were rumors that the Duchess also cared about this new maid, so maybe she had some kind of support. The Baron scoffed, saying, "What kind of support could an uneducated commoner have?" Most likely, it was all just gossip. Letitia couldn't help but notice how that girl from the Duke's house, Leah, was already super popular with everyone her age. Her story had really made an impression. But honestly, Letitia didn't care. She had already decided she was going to win Diana's heart no matter what. Baron Jude showed up at the banquet with his family. He took the chance to remind his daughter again that she needed to give it her all. Letitia snapped back that she remembered, okay. Then she started scanning the room for Diana. Suddenly, her eyes landed on a girl wearing the exact same dress she had wanted for herself. Letitia was absolutely furious, but she forced on a friendly smile and walked right up to Leah. She poked Leah with her fan and asked which family the young lady was from. Leah froze. She recognized the angry girl from the shop, but since Letitia called her a young lady and was being polite, she probably didn't remember who Leah really was. Just as Leah was about to say something, the master of ceremonies loudly announced the arrival of the Duke and Duchess. Everyone at the banquet stopped and bowed. Leah snuck a glance at Diana. She wasn't crying or throwing a fit. Actually, she looked happy and full of energy. That look didn't go unnoticed. Letitia turned to Leah and said their conversation wasn't over and that it wasn't very ladylike to look around while night-looking. Leah wanted to argue, but Letitia pointed out that she was the one who started the conversation, so a proper lady should respond. Letitia didn't even get to finish her sentence. Suddenly, Diana ran up and gave Leah a big hug. Diana said she really missed Leah, and while acknowledging others with a polite nod, she kept her eyes on her sister. Letitia sharply asked why Diana was being so sweet to someone so blunt. Diana pointed at Letitia, called her an idiot, and demanded to know why she was bothering her big sister. Letitia tried to defend herself, but Leah thought, oh, this is getting out of hand. More and more nobles at the banquet started gathering around, asking what was going on. Leah tried to calm Diana down, saying she was fine, but Diana shot back that the brat was giving her sister dirty looks. Leah told Diana she was just imagining things and suggested they go play somewhere else. Letitia fumed to herself about how rude that was and swore she wouldn't just let it slide. Once outside, Lady Diana started blaming herself, remembering she had promised to always protect her sister. She said she didn't like people who treated Leah badly. Diana said she wanted to scold the jerk like a knight protecting her sister. That really flattered Leah. She told Diana that she had already protected her just like a real knight when she stood up for her big sister. Diana listened with her mouth open as Leah told her how brave and awesome she had looked in that moment. Leah asked Diana to sit at a table and wait while she brought back some snacks. Diana shouted for her sister to hurry back, and Leah thought about how adorable and brave she was. As Leah walked away, she thought she needed to grab as many treats as possible for Diana. After all, she had skipped her meal and ran straight over to her. But there were just so many desserts and pastries everywhere. Leah was blown away and called it a sweet tooth's paradise. She couldn't believe something this fancy was just available like this. Once again, she realized she loved aristocratic banquets. While Leah was deciding what to grab, some girls passing by started whispering and giggling. They were curious if this was really that commoner the Duke's daughter had brought into the family. More and more people started gossiping, making fun of how this scared girl was already tired of wearing a fancy dress like the ladies. The nobles pointed out she wasn't even pretty. How did she ever catch the Duke's daughter's attention? Leah decided to just ignore all Theknitel since she had more important things to do. Until she suddenly froze in surprise. Alan was standing right in front of her. She knew she shouldn't run into him, or there would be an argument and a whole scene. Leah wondered what the young master was even doing here. Shouldn't he be with his parents, greeting guests? Leah didn't notice someone coming up behind her, so it was a total shock when she suddenly felt a hard shove in her back. The first thought that flashed through Leah's mind as she hit the ground was about the ruined dress the Duchess had given her. The Duchess happened to be nearby and was surprised by all the commotion. A few seconds later, the Duchess spotted Leah sprawled on the floor and rushed over to her. She asked what happened, if Leah was okay, if she was hurt. Leah assured her everything was fine. Leah knew one of the nobles had pushed her, so if she spoke up, it would just cause a big scene. She didn't want to ruin the Duke's family's reputation, so she decided to let it go. She felt bad for causing a scene at such an event. She thought even a fancy outfit couldn't hide her low birth. Her perceived lack of manners gave her away. Alan strode confidently into the crowd of nobles, pointed at Letitia, and said she was the one who pushed Leah. He added that he saw it all, clear as day. Letitia got all worked up, asking how the young master could even say that. She would never stoop so low. He shouted back, telling her to stop making excuses. He definitely saw everything with his own eyes. Then he turned to everyone else, asking them to back him up since they all saw it too. But nobody said a word. Suddenly, Duke Ellard showed up at the scene and asked why nobody was questioning the victim. After all, what was the point of King to witnesses if you didn't even ask the person who got hurt? His Grace asked Leah to answer honestly. Did she fall on her own, or did someone push her? Leah quietly admitted that she didn't just fall, someone definitely pushed her. Alan yelled, asking why no one was listening to him. He saw Letitia push Leah. Letitia started yelling too, saying she never even touched that maid, didn't even get close to her. But when the Duke asked Leah if she saw who pushed her and Leah said no, Letitia broke into a smile. She knew no one would like the sight of a worthless maid, so she just had to keep looking pitiful. But suddenly, Letitia's eyes went wide. Leah said she had proof. Leah was holding a piece of ribbon in her hand. She had grabbed at the pusher's clothes as she fell. Everyone gasped when they recognized the lace from Miss Letitia's dress. Alan, the young master, smirked, saying, "Well, isn't that interesting?" This contradicted Letitia's claim that she never got close to Leah. Baron Jude and his wife rushed over, worried, and asked what happened. Did their daughter really dare disrespect Duke Ellard like that? His Grace told the Baron that because of what his daughter did at the banquet, she would get the punishment she deserved. The Duchess helped Leah up. Then Alan grabbed Leah's hand and shouted that Diana herself had chosen her. He announced that no one was allowed to touch Leah or treat her badly. Letitia apologized and burst into tears. She ran off, and Alan yelled after her to pay for the ruined dress, noting it was Diana's own pick. After that, the Duchess asked Leah if she was really okay. Leah just couldn't hold back anymore. She started crying. Through her tears, she begged the Duchess to forgive her for causing a scene, messing up the dress, and ruining the celebration. The Duchess told her to wipe her tears because none of this was her fault. She said, "You can always buy a new dress." Right then, Diana ran over and hugged Leah tight. Diana was fuming that some jerk dared to hurt her sister and mess up her clothes, so now they just had to get a new one. Leah thanked Diana for caring, and the Duchess suggested the girls go to a boutique and buy a ton of new clothes. Leah decided that in this life, she wouldn't suffer, give up, or let anyone push her around, because now she had people who truly cared about her. Back at the mansion, Leah took a relaxing bath and finally felt like she could breathe easily. Sure, it was unfortunate that the banquet ended on such a sour note, but at least she had avoided an unfair outcome. Leah knew that even with proof, she wouldn't have achieved anything without the Duke and Alan's support. She made up her mind to earn as much money as she could once she got to the capital. Someone knocked on Leah's door. When she opened it, Alan was standing there. He asked her to come with him. Leah felt awkward. She hadn't expected to see the young master this late. After all, he used to hate her, so why did he help her today? Did that mean they had made up? He led her into a room overflowing with cakes and pastries and told her she could eat as much as she wanted. Leah started wondering what Alan was up to, but she hadn't eaten anything all morning, so there was nothing to do but wish herself a good meal. The food was great, but just as she was enjoying it, Alan suddenly interrupted her with an apology. At first, Leah thought she misheard and even asked the young master to repeat himself. Alan admitted he was sorry for being angry at Leah before. He explained that his mom told him about everything Leah had been through. Alan said he now knew how Leah protected Diana and what she had done for her previously. He thought Leah was just being nice to his little sister because she wanted something, but honestly, who could plan anything in a mess like that? He apologized again, saying he took out his anger about his missing sister on Leah. But she told him what mattered was that he stood up for her today. Alan replied that of course he had to. Letitia was out of line, and Leah was being blamed for nothing. He added that he just couldn't stand unfairness. Leah then told him the young master was actually pretty cool. She asked him not to look angry, saying, "It's a shame when a good-looking face gets all twisted up in a scowl." Alan got all flustered, like, "What are you looking about?" Leah said it was nothing weird, just a compliment, and besides, it's true. Alan said, "Yeah, I am good-looking, but you're not cute at all, and honestly, you're just a silly little dummy." Leah retorted, "Wow, that's so childish of you." Leah privately thought that even though the day was stressful, at least it ended pretty well. And just like that, a new year began. Leah turned 9, and Alan and Jack were both 11 now. Leah had a great New Year's with Diana, and getting ready for the trip to the capital was going pretty smoothly. Life at the duchy was actually going great, except for one weird day when a woman with glasses showed up. With a strict voice, she asked if the girl in front of her was the one who found the specia plant. The woman apologized for her abrupt beginning, saying she should have introduced herself first. She said her name was Viscountess Bordeaux, Duke Ellard's personal doctor. Leah remembered that this woman had totally surpassed her own brothers and sisters in her career. Not only did she become the head of her family, she also got famous for her medical skills. Leah thought it made sense. She had wondered what was so urgent for the Duke to call her. It turned out to be for a meeting with the doctor. Viscountess Bordeaux asked how Leah knew what kind of plant it was. Leah said it's easy to mix up with a weed, but the leaves and stem of specia are different. She pointed out the thin, thorn-like hairs on the stem and that the veins on the leaves spread out like a spiderweb. That was the main thing that set it apart from other plants. Viscountess Bordeaux's assistants had never seen this rare healing herb in real life before. They said they needed to start growing it with the mages right away. The woman with glasses asked if Leah had seen any other interesting plants, then added she should probably study medicine. Leah felt a weird sense of déjà vu. But then the Duke cut in and said that was enough questions for today. It was time for everyone to get back to work and start researching right away. When everyone left, Leah finally let out a sigh of relief. At last, some peace and quiet. Duke Ellard said Leah was truly a treasure, and Leah's eyes went wide in shock. The Duke explained that his wife said there was finally a real treasure in the house now. Leah privately thought, if that were really true, she wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble. He added that if they could manage to grow the plant Leah found, they would be able to make a medicine. That medicine would make the duchy famous across the whole empire. The Duke said he wanted to reward Leah and asked what she desired. Leah was stunned, but the Duke pointed out it was only fair. He wanted to give her a share for discovering something so valuable. The Duke asked if she really thought he was a liar who would deny her credit. Leah happily blurted out that she knew exactly what she wanted. The next day, Leah spun around in front of the mirror, excited that she finally had her own official-made uniform. She remembered complaining to His Grace that the butler wouldn't give her a uniform because they didn't have her size. Leah had said she had to wear this expensive dress, even though it was a pain to do chores in it. The Duke was surprised she had asked for something so simple, and Leah felt proud of herself for getting over her shyness and asking for the uniform. Leah thought it was about time to head out. After all, it was the day they were leaving for the capital. While the servants were rushing around getting the carriage ready, Alan and Jack started chatting. They had become friends after all those training sessions together. Alan, the young master, couldn't believe Leah used to be such a quiet, obedient kid. Jack said he didn't really know, since he hadn't looked to her much, and Alan thought that was kind of weird. He meant they had spent years side by side in the same orphanage but never really got to know each other. So why did Leah ask her father to pick Jack for the night order? Was it just because of how he looked? While Alan was lost in thought, Leah suddenly walked up and asked what he was doing. Alan freaked out, saying she couldn't just sneak up on people like that. Leah apologized, saying she didn't think he'd get that scared. That's when the Duke and Duchess came over to the children. They asked what all the commotion was about. Maybe everyone just couldn't wait to head to the capital. Suddenly, Diana jumped in front of Alan and yelled at him not to even think about touching her little sister. The Duke started walking toward the carriage, telling everyone not to waste time and to get in already, they'd be leaving soon. Alan begged them not to just walk by and to stop Diana. Out of nowhere, the Duchess asked Leah why she was heading the other way. Leah explained she was going to the servants' carriage. His Grace said Leah would be riding with them, and Leah was honestly shocked. She knew the servants' carriage journey took 15 days, and since teleporting was expensive, only the Duke's family was supposed to use it. Leah realized that if she joined them, the cost would go up, so she hesitated. The Duchess said Diana would cry and throw a fit without her big sister. Leah apologized if she was being a bother. The Duchess told her not to say silly things and to hurry up and get in. So the carriage set off. Diana fell asleep on her sister's lap while Leah thought about the Duke's promise to open an account in Leah's name once they arrived. He'd assigned an investor, and over time, Leah would get a share of the profits from the new business. So her ties to the Ellard family were getting stronger, but it was fine, she wasn't under their control. Suddenly, Alan, the young master, turned to Leah and called her an idiot. He said she probably had no idea, so he'd have to explain that looks aren't the most important thing about a person. Leah figured this trip was definitely going to be interesting. When the Duke's family arrived at their mansion in the capital, it started to rain. The Duchess greeted the butler, Albert, saying it had been ages and asked how things had been. He replied that nothing new or exciting had happened, then asked where the Duke was. The Duchess said he had urgent business and went straight to the Imperial Palace. While they were looking, Leah caught the eye of a girl staring at her with a weird cold hatred. But Leah suspected she just imagined it because the brunette suddenly greeted Diana with a cheerful voice. She introduced herself as the head maid, Helen, and said Miss Diana looked just like her mom. But Helen didn't even get to say her own name clearly. For some reason, Diana clung to her sister and started whining, and the Duchess got annoyed. Diana wasn't the kind of kid to cry for no reason. The Duchess asked Alan to knock Diana away and calm her down somewhere else. Leah wanted to go with Diana, but the Duchess stopped her with a hand. The Duchess turned to Helen, the head maid, and said she totally forgot to introduce Leah, the girl she'd mentioned before. Leah explained that she took care of Diana. The maids started whispering to each other, wondering who this girl was who showed up with the Duchess by teleporting in. One of them pointed out that Leah was wearing a maid's uniform, then asked if her friend saw how Miss Diana hugged that stranger. Leah privately thought that this felt a lot like the day her master first brought her to spy school. The other students looked at her with suspicion and kept their distance since she had just appeared out of nowhere, and every day after that was full of challenges and trouble. But now, she couldn't draw attention to herself again, or it would all happen the same way. She decided she had to be polite and easygoing if she wanted to stick around the duchy with Diana as long as possible. The Duchess said she had sent a message before coming to the capital, telling them Leah was loved by Diana and needed a room prepared. Helen, the head maid, replied it wasn't proper for a servant to live in the main house, especially right next to Diana. Helen explained they'd set up a nice room for Leah in the servants' dormitory. The Duchess was confused why Helen was saying that since Miss Diana would be looking for her older sister. Helen said that if that was the case, she would put a chair outside Diana's room and let her serve even at night. Leah assured the Duchess there was no need to make a fuss, she was grateful for whatever accommodations they gave her. Leah realized the head maid was in a bad mood, so there was no point arguing, it was better just to let it go. It had been a week since Leah moved into the Duke's mansion in the capital. The Duke kept going to the Imperial Palace, so it was tough to see him around. The Duchess was always busy with high society stuff, thanks to all those invites from noble ladies. At first, Leah didn't really like Helen, but to be fair, she actually did help the Duchess run things. Of course, the head maid kept nagging about discipline and order. For instance, she even banned Leah from having dinner with Diana. But those were just everyday headaches. Leah had bigger things to worry about. Some maids came over and asked if she was that Leah, the one Diana cared about so much. Laughing, they said, "Isn't it enough that a commoner gets to eat with Miss Diana? Now you want to share a room with her too?" Another maid chimed in, saying, even if she was in the young lady's good graces, she should know her place and be grateful for the job. She pointed out Leah was an orphan working in the Duke's fancy mansion without even a letter of recommendation. The maids were pretty surprised when Leah replied that working here really was an honor, so she'd just try harder. They had nothing to say to that, so they just asked how long the little squirt was going to stand there since laundry was piling up. Leah laughed, said she got the hint, and was on her way, thinking privately that at least the nitpicking was over. She got off easy this time. Now, checking in on Jack, when he walked into the mansion, he heard some dreamy sighs and squeals from the young maids. They were swooning over how good-looking he was, completely confused about why he was even there. Jack, the young knight, stopped a passing maid and asked if he could ask her something. She lit up and said he could ask her anything. So Jack asked where he could find Leah. The maid wanted to know why he needed to know, and Jack responded, "Do I really have to explain myself?" She said Leah was probably in the laundry room, which surprised Jack, since Leah was usually with Diana at this hour. Seriously, ever since they got to the capital, all Leah seemed to be doing was dirty chores. Leah paused for a quick breather. It turned out there was way more laundry than she thought. Out of nowhere, she felt someone grab her hand. It was Jack. Leah asked what he was doing there, but Jack, the young knight, got all offended. Was that really all she had to say to him? He explained it had been days since he arrived in the capital, and he hadn't heard a peep from his friend. Even the usually cold young master, Alan, mentioned he hadn't seen Leah in a while. Not far off, the maids started whispering, wondering if Leah was crossing the line and what was really going on between her and the young knight. Jack pointed out that he and Leah had a problem, they were totally in the maids' sights now. Leah said there's no better gossip material for young maids, but anyway, she was glad to see him, even if she was busy right now. Jack asked if she was really doing all this by herself. Didn't she come here to look after Miss Diana? Leah smiled and said she didn't always do chores, she had everything planned out with a schedule and all. Suddenly, a maid ran up and reminded her she had a tea party scheduled with Diana. Jack offered to help, but Leah politely turned him down and told him to take care of his own stuff. Right then, a cute red-haired girl showed up and assured Leah she could go, she'd handle things herself. The girl said they should help each other out, especially since Diana was waiting, they needed to hurry. Leah thanked her and took off while Jack tried to stop her. But the red-haired maid stepped in front of him and asked if he could help carry the clean laundry if it wasn't too much trouble. She claimed she just couldn't lift it all by herself. Jack suddenly pictured Leah doing all that work alone. He told the maid that Leah was younger and smaller than her but still managed just fine on her own. So he just walked off, saying she didn't need his help, and didn't even look back when she called out to him. Meanwhile, Leah was hurrying to Diana's quarters, thinking about Jack the whole way. She was glad her friend was getting popular lately, especially since he looked so grown up now and the young maids were starting to notice him. Leah realized it wouldn't be long before Jack was catching the eyes of noble ladies too, not just the maids. Still, back before he swore loyalty to Diana, there wasn't a single rumor about Jack dating anyone or having a fling. Either way, Jack had eyes, right? Sooner or later, he was bound to notice someone. Suddenly, Alan popped up in Leah's path and asked why she looked so happy. Leah wondered if the young master had managed to get out of training early. He said he finished ahead of schedule so he could have lunch with Diana, not because he wanted to see Leah. Alan made it clear his sister was super busy with her studies, so he tried to make time to eat together. Leah started wondering how Diana was doing with her lessons. After all, the Duchess had been worried that Diana was too young for homeschooling. Helen, the head maid, replied that compared to other noble children, Miss Diana was already behind in her studies, so the Duchess really had no choice but to agree. Alan said there was no time to chat since Leah was probably rushing to a tea party anyway. Leah wished Alan good luck with his training and ran off. But then thought he was acting weird, like he was dodging her questions. As soon as Leah walked into the room, Diana ran over and hugged her tight. Leah asked how Diana had been. Diana said she had been learning her letters, practicing drawing, and studying the basics of etiquette. Leah felt relieved to see Diana so cheerful. It meant she wasn't too overwhelmed with lessons. Suddenly, the Duchess greeted the girls. She said she made time for them on purpose after hearing about their little tea party. Honestly, the Duchess had a ton of stuff to do. Her days weren't easy either. Right then, Helen came over and handed her some budget reports that needed to be reviewed before the day was over. There was also an invitation to a banquet the Duchess was supposed to attend next week that she had to look over. The Duchess urged the girls to get started, or else the tea Helen made would get cold. Leah glanced down at what was in their cups and realized it was black tea, Miss Diana's least favorite. Diana asked for cocoa, and Helen, the head maid, asked if Diana really planned to drink cocoa like a kid at the atelier tomorrow too. The Duchess was annoyed. What atelier trip? And why wasn't she told about it? Helen reminded her that she had mentioned more than once that Miss Diana needed to start getting involved in society. The Duchess said she remembered clearly that she was against it back then. It was way too soon. The kid barely knew how to talk nice to strangers. Helen, the maid, said she understood that the Duchess didn't grow up in the capital and might not get how things work. Helen went on saying aristocratic kids have to start making friends with other noble families from a young age. Plus, Lady Diana is the heir to one of only 2 duchies in the whole empire. In their duchy, there's only one heir, so Lady Diana has to become the star of high society, otherwise she'll just end up a laughingstock. Diana asked if Leah would be going with her. Helen answered firmly that Leah couldn't be at the atelier. Instead, another more experienced maid would go with Miss Diana. The maid greeted Diana and introduced herself as Sophie. She added that she already knew all the noble ladies who'd be at the atelier tomorrow. That's why Miss Diana could totally trust her. She'd stick by her side till the very end. The Duchess told Helen that today she had really crossed the line. She didn't check with the Duchess and just did whatever she wanted. Leah privately thought how weird this was since now Diana wouldn't be with her. Helen said it was about time Miss Diana got her own personal maid. Then, laughing, she asked if the Duchess had ever thought about giving that job to a 9-year-old girl named Leah. She pointed out that not just anyone could serve Diana, especially not for her first trip to the atelier. She explained that while on paper it was just a friendly outing, it was really a mini high society event packed with young ladies and lords. They had all formed their own cliques by now, and one couldn't afford to mess up, even if young, so they had to be careful picking a maid. The Duchess got offended, saying maybe Helen didn't know, but Leah was actually a really smart and sharp kid. Helen replied that the Duchess only thought that because Leah was under her protection, But still, she was just 9. Leah understood that Helen was being harsh with the Duchess, but since she was looking out for Miss Diana, it was forgivable. No wonder the Duchess was hesitating and afraid of messing up her daughter's future. Life in high society was all new to her. Leah stood up, apologized to everyone, and said she needed to go so Miss Diana and Sophie could get ready. Before leaving, she wished Diana good luck with her studies. The next day, the carriage for the trip to the atelier was ready. As they tried to help Diana into the carriage, Leah noticed how beautiful she looked that day. Suddenly, Diana spotted Leah, her big sister, in the crowd of maids. Right away, Diana's face fell, and tears started streaming down her cheeks. The maids crowded around her, trying to calm her down. Through her tears, Diana said she wasn't going anywhere without her sister. If her sister stayed home, so would she. Sophie tried to talk her into getting in the carriage right away, saying a real lady doesn't make a scene, but that just made things worse. So Leah scooted closer to Diana and told her there would be tons of sweets where she was going, plus lots of new people to meet. Leah promised it would be fun, and when they got back, Miss Diana would read her a story and play dolls with her till they both dropped. Diana stopped crying and demanded a pinky swear. In return, Leah asked her to promise she would go to the atelier in a good mood and have a great time. Diana happily jumped into the carriage and shouted to her sister that she'd be back soon. Leah shouted back, wishing her a good trip. Right then, Alan, the young master, called Leah an idiot, his way of telling her to come over. Leah wished Miss Diana was here, because she would have bitten his leg for that ages ago. Leah politely asked what the young master wanted. He told her to bring snacks to the training grounds in a bit. She asked why, but Alan snapped that she was a maid, and her job was to do what the master says. He added that he'd be eating snacks during breaks with Jack, so she shouldn't send another maid. He wanted her to bring them herself. Helen, the head maid, was watching this whole exchange closely. During training, Jack paused to wipe the sweat from his face. He noticed Alan, the young master, just standing there, staring at him in silence, so he asked if his lordship wanted to say something. Alan proudly said that Leah liked good-looking guys, and by the way, she had already complimented his looks a few times. Jack said he had no idea she was into handsome guys. After all, she had called him handsome a few times herself. Their conversation got interrupted by Leah, who told the young master she had brought some snacks.
Rhea arrives with a basket, cheerfully announcing she has brought snacks. Jack offers to help Rhea with the heavy basket, and their hands touch with a spark. Rhea insists the basket wasn't heavy, but internally admits she used lightweight magic after other maids offered their help. The young master glares at Rhea and Jack's friendly interaction. Rhea nervously presents the snacks to the young master, asking why he looks upset. The young master sizes them up, suspiciously asking if there's something going on between the two of them. Flustered, Rhea vehemently denies his accusation. She explodes, shouting at him for speaking such nonsense about Diana's man. Rhea clarifies that she and Jack have been close friends since the orphanage, and there is absolutely no chance of romance. Pointing emphatically, she insists it will never, ever happen. Rhea turns to Jack for support, confidently asking him to confirm their platonic friendship. Jack stands frozen, blushing intensely and unable to speak. Her confident smile fades as she sees his flustered reflection in her eyes, leaving her utterly baffled. A wave of pure confusion washes over Rhea. A new chapter is announced, along with a call for staff. As the next chapter is announced, Rhea's denial echoes her firm belief that a romance would never happen. Rhea again presses a silent Jack for confirmation. Jack looks away, still blushing and utterly speechless. Confused by his strange expression, Rhea wonders if he's upset and tries to reassure him that the young master is just being playful. The young master snatches the basket from Jack's hand. He offers Jack a drink, cheekily suggesting they have one more sparring match. Jack takes the offered bottle with a look of grim determination. With a blush on his cheeks, Jack warns the young master he won't go easy on him this time. An intense energy crackles between the two boys, as Rhea is told to wait on the side, baffled by their sudden shift in mood. Announcing she's leaving, Rhea thanks them for their hard work. After she leaves, Jack nervously finishes his work. Rhea returns and asks Jack if the cleanup is done. She complains that the young master is mean for always running off, leaving Jack to clean up alone. Continuing her rant, Rhea suddenly notices a wound on Jack's cheek. Her expression softens with concern as she asks if he's hurt. She moves closer, trying to get a better look at the cut. Jack quickly grabs her hand, stopping her. He looks at her intently and says her name. Jack asks Rhea if she has feelings for young Master Alan. Stunned, Rhea sputters about the strict social divide, shocked by the very idea. He clarifies, asking if she means romantically, and she confirms his suspicion with a nod. Rhea confidentially tells Jack she sees the young master as a little brother, baffling Jack since Alan is older. She brushes off his confusion, revealing she heard Alan still sleeps with a doll, much to Jack's flustered embarrassment. Jack clenches his fist, taking a moment to process her words. He quietly asks what she thinks of him, leaving Rhea puzzled. From a short distance, Jack asks if she sees him as a little brother too. Rhea beams brightly and declares that he is her friend. A gentle smile spreads across Jack's face, his relief palpable. Rhea teases Jack, asking if he was worried about their friendship being affected by class differences, a problem she'll deal with later. Just as she thinks no one sees her romantically, another maid urgently calls out her name. Surprised, Rhea learns Diana is back, and the other maid kindly offers to finish the cleanup for her. Rhea thanks her friend and rushes off, telling Jack to visit the infirmary as he calls after her to wait. Hurrying down the hall, Rhea wonders if Diana's salon visit was a success. Creak. Rhea nervously enters the madam's room, announcing her arrival. The Duchess welcomes her into the grand bedroom, where Diana and the young master are already seated. The Duchess explains Diana fell asleep from exhaustion, and Rhea admires her, thinking she looks like a baby angel. Rhea and Alan both gush over the sleeping Diana, their faces alight with adoration. Ugh. Suddenly flustered, Alan defensively insists he's just admiring his little sister. The Duchess interrupts, telling Rhea she has something to give her and presents a letter. Rhea looks down at the formal letter, puzzled by its appearance. The Duchess reveals that the letter is from Countess Marietta. Rhea is stunned, recalling an image of the imposing Countess Marietta. The Duchess apologizes for reading it first, explaining it was addressed to her because the sender assumed Rhea was illiterate, and tells her to go ahead. Agreeing nervously, Rhea begins to open the letter with trembling hands. She is moved to discover the letter is actually from Bianca, someone she thought had forgotten her. Rhea holds the lengthy, handwritten letter, absorbing Bianca's words. Bianca is happy that Rhea is well and that her scars have healed. Bianca apologizes for being too distracted before to properly praise the Duchy of Bellis. The letter praises the Duchy of Bellis, highlighting the Archmage Duke, the handsome heir, and the breathtaking views. Rhea smiles, noting the letter is full of patriotic praise for the duchy, a testament to Countess Marietta's loyalty. Deeply touched, she vows to preserve the letter with magic and treasure it as an heirloom. Alan interrupts, confused, asking how she can read when the orphanage didn't teach literacy. Rhea cheerfully explains a visiting sister taught her while the boys played outside, noting even Jack was surprised by her literacy. The Duchess then gets to the point, calling Rhea's name and asking if she wants to go to the duchy. The two women face each other, the Duchess's offer hanging in the air between them. As the Duchess's question echoes, Rhea admits to herself that the letter has made her curious about the duchy. The Duchess agrees that the Duchy of Bellis is wonderful, but a shadow of doubt crosses her face. Rhea asks if the Duchess has been there, and she confirms it hesitantly, but before she can continue, Alan excitedly blurts out that he's been there too. He playfully smothers Rhea's face while boasting about his own visit to the duchy. The Duchess calls his bluff, pointing out he was only 2, but Alan stubbornly denies he's lying. Apologizing for wasting her time, the Duchess dismisses Rhea for the night, leaving a sulking Alan to mutter that he hates his mom. Alone again, the Duchess sits silently in her room, lost in thought. A wave of quiet concern washes over her face. The Duchess watches her go, wondering what answer Rhea will give her. Okay, I'm ready. Please provide the text you would like me to read back to you. A few days after receiving the letter, a man named Viscount Bardot thanks Rhea for her help. He explains her help was invaluable and gives her a small pouch as a reward, which she gratefully accepts. He worries it's not enough, but Rhea assures him it's exactly what she needed. He waves goodbye, telling her to take care and visit anytime. Rhea cheerfully thanks the Viscount and wishes him a great day. She turns and walks away, her task complete. For several days after receiving the letter, Rhea helped Viscount Bardot with a task she chanced upon. It was a simple task of organizing herbs, but the overworked Viscount's gratitude led to her overhearing something unexpected. In a flashback, she recalls the Viscount's frustration over their inability to grow the herb splasia. His subordinate confirms even the root they found isn't growing, and the Viscount laments they need at least one good root to study its effects. Back in the present, Rhea sighs, thinking their progress is far too slow. She muses that despite having the Duke's best doctors and mages, they've made little headway, perhaps not even understanding how to properly use it. Overwhelmed with worries and still needing to reply to Bianca, she hurries away. Suddenly, Diana joyfully shouts for her sister and leaps into her arms. "I missed you, sis," she cries as other maids call after her to be careful. Beaming, Diana proudly presents a drawing as a gift for her sister. Rhea gasps, deeply touched by the gesture from the young miss. She wonders if it's the fairy tale princess, imagining a glamorous, pink-haired royal. Looking at the sweet, childish drawing, Rhea thinks fondly that it looks just like the princess. Overjoyed, Rhea accepts Diana's drawing, moved when the young lady calls her a princess. Another maid praises Diana's generosity as Rhea gazes at the young girl with affection. The red-haired maid approaches, smilingly reporting that all the other noble ladies at the salon were gossiping about Rhea. Flustered, Rhea is stunned by the unexpected attention from the nobility. Rhea recalls Diana's simple smile about the salon, feeling both proud and embarrassed that she was the topic of conversation. "But still," the red-haired maid says, a knowing smile hinting at something more. The maid explains Diana called Rhea the prettiest, adding she's worried how other ladies might be surprised upon actually meeting her. The maid's smug expression contrasts with Diana's nervous grip on Rhea's hand. Flinch. Rhea feels a wave of humiliation wash over her from the maid's condescending smile. Surrounded by whispering silhouettes, the other maids maliciously question the young lady's praise for Rhea. Clenching her fist, Rhea struggles to respond to the passive-aggressive comments. Rhea fondly recalls Diana's sincere praise, cherishing the genuine affection behind her words. She remembers that Diana never bragged or judged others based on their appearance. Clutching Diana, Rhea angrily wonders why she must endure such humiliation despite the young lady's pure heart. Sensing her distress, Diana looks up with concern and asks what's wrong. The maid quickly covers, telling Diana she was just admiring her wisdom and grace. Rhea forces a smile and agrees, leaving Diana puzzled by the strange compliment. The maid praises Diana for valuing inner beauty over appearances, a clear jab at Rhea that makes the other maids snicker. As the maid grandly declares Diana worthy of being the Duke's daughter, an imposing figure suddenly appears. Alan's sharp voice cuts in, questioning why Diana is just standing there, blank-faced. The offending maid lies fallen on the ground as Alan glares down at her with cold disdain. Alan bluntly tells his sister that the maid is mocking her right now. He clarifies that the maid's praise is sarcastic, shocking Diana with the revelation. "What do you know, you ugly thing?" Diana shouts, fiercely defending Rhea as the prettiest girl in the world. The flustered maid frantically denies any malicious intent, waving her hands in protest. Thwack! Alan grabs the maid's arm, insisting she knew exactly what she was doing. He forcefully reminds the maid of her place as nothing more than a servant in the Duke's household. Alan stands resolutely before Rhea and Diana, a clear protector. He continues his public dressing down as the maid desperately pleads that it's not what he thinks. Alan silences her excuses, an order the nearby butler calmly accepts. A dark resolve forms in his mind concerning the troublesome maid. Pointing decisively, Alan orders that he never wants to see her again. The maid cries out in panicked protest, begging him to reconsider. She falls to her knees, begging the young master for forgiveness just this once. Showing no mercy, Alan banishes her from the mansion immediately, warning that everyone present will be held accountable if she returns. His task complete, Alan gently ushers a stunned Rhea and Diana away from the scene. Rhea glances back, her expression clouded with unease. In hindsight, Rhea realizes she didn't understand the implications of being publicly protected by the young master. The next day, the scene shifts to the knight's quarters. "Jack, over here," Rhea calls, approaching him at the entrance. Jack asks what's happening, admitting he thought it was a joke that she came looking for him. After he asks her purpose, Rhea nervously presents him with a small jar as a gift. Jack examines the jar as Rhea explains it's a powerful healing ointment for cuts and scrapes. She proudly explains she got the special ointment from Baroness Bardo herself after helping with the difficult task. Rhea adds that the Baroness is also developing potions for energy restoration and growth, but Jack remains silent. Jack quietly says her name, causing her to look up at him, questioningly. Clenching the jar, he quietly asks if he still looks that weak to her. Confused by his question, Rhea is left speechless as Jack dismisses it and simply thanks her for the gift. Rhea laughs, reassuring Jack that as someone who knows the future, she'd never underestimate his skills. Jack thanks her for visiting and offers to walk her back before he returns to his training. He stops suddenly, his expression turning serious as he asks if she's letting herself be fooled again. Blindsided by his question, Rhea stares back at him in stunned silence. She defensively fires back, asking what he's talking about and accusing him of treating her like a fool. Clenching his fist, Jack's concern deepens as he asks if she is truly doing okay. Fearing he overheard the maids, Rhea quickly insists that she is completely fine. He presses, asking if she's being bullied, but she gets flustered and vehemently denies it. Putting on a brave face, she reminds him of her strength, recalling how she once saved him from bullies. His eyes still full of doubt, he asks one last time if she's really all right, and she insists she is. Waving a cheerful goodbye, Rhea tells him to train hard and quickly heads off. As she walks away, she can't help but feel touched by how deeply Jack worries for her. She recalls Alan banishing the maid Sophie, thinking that incident had put an end to the bullying. Despite the discomfort of the other servants' glares, she resolves to just be careful and endure. Slash! Her thoughts are cut short as she trips on a bucket of water left in the hallway. Huh? She stares up from the floor, completely shocked by the sudden fall. Pushing herself up, she sees the spilled water and the abandoned bucket. Hee? As she questions the misplaced bucket, she spots a maid giggling from behind a pillar. Realizing it was a trap, she wonders if she should report the sabotage to the Duchess. No, she instantly dismisses the idea, aghast at her own presumption. Chiding herself for almost forgetting her place, she decides she can't bother the Duchess with her problems. She resolves to endure the bullying as she has before, though she wishes things were that simple. Used to bullying from her past life, she tries to tolerate the maids whispering behind her back. Splash! A bucket of water is suddenly dumped on her from a balcony above. From the balcony, two maids smirk down at a drenched and defeated Rhea. Trembling, she clenches her fists, realizing the bullying has gone too far. The foul stench hits her, and she realizes with disgust that they used dirty mop water. She panics, remembering Diana's class is ending soon, and she can't be seen like this. Rushing to her room to change, she frantically searches for clean clothes. To her horror, her only option is the fancy dress she arrived in, as her uniforms are all being washed. She holds up the dress, knowing it will cause gossip, but realizing she has no other choice. Determined not to be shamed, she decides to wear the dress with confidence. She looks in the mirror and sees the reflection of an elegant, pink-haired noble lady staring back. The reflection looks somber and out of place, intensifying her own feelings of unease. She hopes wearing an apron over the fancy dress will help her stand out less. She hurries into the hall, trying to move quickly and avoid being seen. Thump! She stops dead in her tracks as a pair of tall, imposing boots blocks her way. Looking up, she finds a surprised, red-haired young man looking down at her. The red-haired boy turns to Alan, calling him Lucio, and asking if Ria is his little sister. Ria freezes, her mind reeling at the unexpected name. Alan is also shocked, sharply denying that he is Lucio. The three stand frozen in the grand hallway, the air thick with tension. Alan turns to the other boy and coldly clarifies that Ria is not his sibling. "She's not my sister," he repeats, his gaze fixed on the stunned Ria. Lucio, the name echoes in her mind, a ghost from the past. Alan looks away, his expression cold and unreadable. The red-haired boy accepts the answer, noting the lack of resemblance as Ria struggles with the sudden encounter. She remains frozen in place, her face pale with shock. In a different time and place, an old friend from the orphanage asks Ria if she knew that scary person. In a flashback, Ria's friend from the orphanage struggles to recall a certain duke's name. The friend remembers the scary Duke Elard, mentioning that his son attends their academy. When a classmate calls the duke's daughter a crybaby, a young Jack fiercely defends the princess, earning the envy of another child. Ria brings the conversation back to the duke's son, struggling to remember his name. Snap! The memory solidifies as his full name is suddenly recalled, Lucio Elard. The name echoes in her memory as she recalls being a lost child, whispering, "Lucio. Elard?" She remembers struggling to write in the dirt, wishing she could go to school, when a boy's voice asks who she is. Startled, she looks up to find a young, silver-haired boy looking down at her in the sunlit woods. He states that she kept calling his name, a revelation that brings the memory into sharp focus. Shaken, she returns to the present, wondering why that long-forgotten memory suddenly resurfaced. The red-haired boy asks Lucio if she's deaf, snapping Ria out of her daze as she quickly apologizes for her stunned silence. He asks who she is, having never heard of another Elard lady, and she clarifies that she's merely a maid. He looks at her skeptically, questioning why a simple maid would be wearing such a fancy dress. Ria stands uncomfortably, suddenly very conscious of her out-of-place noble attire. As a hand reaches out, a formal voice addresses the red-haired boy as, "Your Highness." Lucio steps between them, warning the prince not to interrogate a member of his household. As Lucio turns to leave, the prince sighs, accusing him of always needing the last word. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out, "Brother!" as a young boy with golden eyes runs toward them. He arrives hand in hand with an equally delighted Diana. The boy, Alan, chides his older brother for being late, complaining about how long he and Diana have been waiting in the capital. Spotting Ria, Diana rushes over for a hug, excitedly asking why her big sis is there. The prince concludes Ria must be Diana's favorite playmate, which explains the dress, and Ria is relieved the misunderstanding is resolved. Alan asks Lucio what took so long, and Lucio explains it was exams but promises to stay a while, much to his brother's delight. Alan asks his brother if someone named Askell came along, as he's never met Diana, and Alan wanted to introduce them. The prince advises young Alan against bragging about Diana to the crown prince, which just confuses Alan. The prince then mockingly addresses Lucio as Your Highness, before asking for a proper introduction, claiming he feels left out. Resigned, Lucio agrees and formally summons Alan and Diana to his side. The red-haired prince stands smugly with his arms crossed, surrounded by an almost villainous aura of roses and candlelight. The name finally clicks for Rhea, who stares in horror, realizing he is Nicholas Laxutin. She recalls he is the sole imperial prince, the same age as Lucio, and, most horrifyingly, the vicious villain who targets Diana in the future. Shaking with protective fury, Rhea glares at the oblivious prince, startling Diana with her sudden change in demeanor. The prince casually comments to Lucio that his little sister is quite cute. Lucio curtly tells him to leave, while the prince protests being dismissed without so much as an offer of tea. Rhea agrees, urging Diana to stay away from him, but Diana looks up at her with a question. "Isn't my brother handsome?" Diana asks innocently, a question that completely flummoxes Rhea and embarrasses her brothers. Flustered, Rhea forces a smile and agrees that the young master is handsome, inwardly panicking at Diana's unpredictable questions. Diana then turns expectantly toward her brother Lucio, not yet finished. "And don't you think Big Sis is pretty too?" she asks Lucio, making Rhea's blood run cold. "She's not pretty," he declares coldly, while Rhea internally screams that she's already painfully aware of that fact. The prince laughs, chiding Lucio for being too harsh, but his teasing only makes the situation more awkward. A worried Alan hurries to Rhea's side, asking if she's okay as a gloomy aura envelops her. "Of course I'm fine," she retorts sarcastically. "I have a young master who calls me ugly every day," leaving Alan speechless. Stuttering, Alan insists he was only trying to comfort her, his attempt clearly backfiring. Changing the subject, Rhea takes Diana's hand and suggests they return to her room to play with dolls. Delighted by the idea, Diana eagerly agrees. With a polite bow, Rhea announces their departure and quickly leads Diana away from the two young lords. The prince watches her go, remarking with a smirk that she's bolder than he expected. He then asks Lucio why he was so blunt when he could have simply lied or stayed silent, but Lucio offers no response. He dismisses the prince's question, claiming it's nothing. In the hallway, Diana asks Rhea if she's mad because Lucio was mean, but Rhea quickly denies it. Taking Diana's sleeve, Rhea leans in to tell her something important. Rhea puts a finger to her lips, asking Diana to keep a secret just between the two of them. The scene transitions to a promotional notice. In a stylized panel, Rhea, now wearing glasses, conspiratorially asks Diana to keep their secret. A wide-eyed Diana curiously repeats, "A secret?" Rhea whispers that the secret is she's actually pretty, a white lie she feels is necessary to cheer Diana up. As Diana confirms it's a secret for just them, Rhea playfully asks how they should protect it. "We must protect it," Diana declares with gusto, insisting on a pinky promise. Diana proclaims herself a hero sworn to protect Princess Rhea's secret, just as a maid arrives to announce that their meal is ready. The maid asks Diana if she's ready to eat, and the young lady eagerly takes her hand and agrees. Diana runs into the dining room, joyfully shouting, "Daddy!" as she leaps into the Duke's arms. The Duke cautions Diana not to fall, as Rhea observes from the doorway, noticing Lucio and the Duchess are also present. Holding Diana, the Duke calls to Lucio, and his daughter beams as she confirms her father's presence. The Duke invites Lucio to sit beside him, and then, to everyone's surprise, invites Rhea to sit as well. Wham! Both Rhea and Lucio are completely shocked by the Duke's unexpected command. The Duke clarifies Diana will sit on his lap while Rhea sits next to her, causing Rhea to panic as she feels the other servants' eyes on her. Two maids gossip that they can't object, since the Duke's word is law, while Rhea feels incredibly out of place at the family table. Rhea stands hesitantly by the table, unsure of what to do. Lucio looks at her and curtly tells her to sit down. Flustered, Rhea quickly thanks the young master and takes her seat. The Duchess smiles and encourages everyone to start eating before the food gets cold. The Duchess happily notes how long it's been since they've all eaten together and tells Lucio to rest well, which he acknowledges. Diana sweetly offers Rhea a piece of bread, which she gratefully accepts. HMPH. The Duke playfully teases Diana by stealing a bite of the bread from Rhea, telling his pouting daughter her arms are too short to beat him. The Duchess serves Rhea a large plate of food, kindly telling her she's small for her age and needs to eat well. Rhea feels acutely self-conscious, knowing the other maids are watching her eat with the family, and she glances nervously at Lucio. She notices two maids standing nearby, watching the dining table intently. Realizing how quiet the room is, Rhea spots another maid standing just behind her chair. She then understands that the maids aren't watching her at all. They're all captivated by Lucio. While admitting Lucio has an attention-grabbing face, Rhea decides she likes Diana best and encourages her to eat. She smiles, privately relieved that all the attention is on Lucio instead of her. Whisper. Elsewhere, maids gossip in disbelief that Rhea ate with the family and was even fed by the master. Whisper. The rumor mill churns as one maid recalls Sonia's claim that Rhea stole the young lady's clothes. They grimly conclude that the new maid is vicious and cunning. The maids lament that the family is fooled, until one realizes the newly arrived Lucio might be their solution. A maid smirks, realizing Lord Lucio is their chance to deal with Rhea. They conspire, confident that the strict Lucio will never tolerate Rhea's perceived misdeeds. The next morning dawns over the magnificent Elard estate. The Duke summons Lucio, stating he has something to discuss with him. At his desk, the Duke explains that much has happened, praising Rhea as a great help to the family. Lucio listens, processing his father's words and asking if he intends to sponsor the girl. The Duke confirms his intention, arguing it would be a waste to keep someone so clever and talented as a mere maid. Lucio remains silent as his father continues to praise Rhea's potential. The Duke confesses he doesn't understand his own uncharacteristic interest in an outsider like Rhea. In a flashback, he recalls the moment he first saw her the previous day. He remembers an inexplicable, sharp pain in his heart, mingled with resentment and another, deeper feeling. The memory of seeing her across the room evokes a powerful sense of longing within him. Back in the present, Lucio reflects on the conversation, remembering the problem. The sponsorship was rejected. The Duke explains to a stunned Lucio that Rhea rejected his sponsorship offer, and he now wants Lucio to convince her. As Lucio hesitates, his father asks if there's something else he's curious about. Lucio asks if sponsorship means Rhea will leave the house, but his father reassures him she'll stay, because Diana still needs her. Relieved, Lucio agrees to the task with a faint, subtle smile. Elsewhere, Rhea is shocked when a senior maid assigns her to clean the main building's library instead of the annex. When asked if she has a problem with it, Rhea nervously insists she doesn't and promises to go right away. Rhea is secretly overjoyed, realizing she's been given access to the Duke's private library, a treasure trove of rare books. She happily hurries off to her new assignment, as two other maids watch her go. Confident that the privacy-loving Lucio will deal with her, they watch as an oblivious Rhea hums on her way to the library. Okay, I understand. Please provide the text you would like me to read back to you. Inside the Grand Library, Rhea imagines the wonderful books she could read, from magic theory to imperial history. Overcome with giddy excitement, she wonders which amazing book she should read first. She makes a mental note to also find a map of the mine locations and study up on the Belis Duchy. She stands in awe before the massive, ornate doors of the library. Believing this is the moment she's most anticipated, she eagerly pushes open the door. creak. She steps into the vast, quiet room. Finding the library dark and dusty, she opens the curtains, letting sunlight flood the room. Delighted by the perfect cleaning weather, she decides to wipe away the dust first. As she works, she freezes, sensing something is hidden behind a nearby lounge chair. Peeking over the furniture, she discovers someone fast asleep on the chaise lounge. She stares at the person's elegant and familiar white attire. Her jaw drops in shock as she realizes the sleeping person is Lucio. Panicked, she wonders why he's hiding his presence in his own home, realizing he nearly gave her a heart attack. Lucio continues to sleep peacefully, bathed in a sliver of sunlight. A flustered Ria watches him, a slight blush on her cheeks. She reflects that the Lucio she's known has always appeared distant and perfect, like a work of art. Realizing this is the first time she's seen him so relaxed, she decides to tidy up quietly so as not to wake him. Curious about what book put him to sleep, she gently reaches for the volume resting on his chest. She's bewildered to read the title is about befriending timid animals, picturing him awkwardly trying to feed a dog and a rabbit. Surprised by his interest in dogs, she admits she prefers cats because they remind her of Diana. As if sensing her presence, Lucio stirs in his sleep. She stands over him, holding the book she just picked up. Wondering why he's sleeping so uncomfortably, she instinctively reaches out and brushes his hair from his forehead. As she studies him, she notices for the first time that he and Diana share a similar hair texture. Just as her hand touches his forehead, his bright blue eyes snap open. "Eek!" He asks what she's doing here, and a mortified Ria recoils, stammering an apology. As she scrambles away, he calls out for her to wait. In her haste to flee, she trips and knocks over a stack of papers, sending them scattering across the floor. "Ow, ow!" She whimpers after falling, but quickly realizes this isn't the time to be in pain. She scrambles to her feet and apologizes, explaining she came to clean and only tried to help after seeing him sleeping. He coldly asks who told her to clean, and her explanation falters as she realizes the truth. The horrible realization hits her. The other maids knew Lucio was here and deliberately sent her to get in trouble. Defeated, she silently gathers the fallen papers and hands them back to him. Lucio accepts the documents, noticing that she's neatly organized them by topic. He notes her ability to read difficult words and asks her pointedly how much she actually understood. Flustered by his unexpected question, she nervously tries to downplay her literacy, claiming she doesn't know much. His gaze intensifies as he observes that she seems to be running away. From whom? Trapped by his sharp perception, Ria can only stare back, flustered and speechless. Lucio observes that she's scared again, while Ria silently accepts that her fear is inevitable. Whisper. Outside the library, the two scheming maids eavesdrop, certain that Ria is being scolded. Eagerly, one of the maids enters the library and asks the young master what he needs. Seeing Ria with Lucio, the maid smugly assumes she was right about Ria getting scolded, just as Lucio confirms Ria found his books. Believing she's being called to administer a harsher punishment, the maid again asks Lucio what he needs. To her shock, Lucio points directly at Ria, announcing his order is for her. He calmly instructs the maid to prepare warm tea, leaving both her and Ria completely baffled. He then requests light snacks, and a stunned Ria can only stare in disbelief. A nervous Ria now sits before a table laden with tea and treats, fork and knife in hand. Realizing he isn't scolding her after all, Ria watches as the other maid takes her leave. Once they're alone, Ria timidly asks the young master why he ordered food for her. He explains it's her reward for finding the books on the list he gave her. Mumbling to himself, he recalls hearing that food is the best kind of reward. When Ria asks him to repeat himself, he dismisses her question and tells her to start eating, prompting her to nervously take a bite. As he moves to sit down, he begins to add another condition. Taking a seat across from her, he orders her to come to the library every day from now on. Stunned, Rhea chokes on her snack as she processes his shocking command to return every day. She panics, convinced he's keeping her close just to torment her for disturbing his sleep. Their conversation is interrupted by two boys at the door, one of whom demands to know what they're doing there. After Rhea explains she came to clean, the boy sharply questions why she's in his brother's private study. She clarifies that other maids assigned her the task, which the boy finds suspicious and nonsensical. Just then, the head maid arrives and apologizes to the young master for the disturbance. She explains it was a mistake by one of her subordinates, but Lucio coldly cuts her off, ordering it to never happen again. Lucio then declares that Rhea will now be in charge of managing the library, stunning her. The head maid stares in disbelief as Lucio confirms Rhea will be returning tomorrow. He firmly instructs Rhea to come straight to the library every day, even after he returns to the academy. His intense gaze frightens her into a terrified, stammered agreement. The head maid, Helen, questions Lucio's decision to entrust the library to Rhea and asks for his reasoning. Lucio gives Helen a chilling look, asking if he truly needs to explain himself to her. Startled by his sharp tone, Helen quickly apologizes. He dismisses her, and she scurries away. Lucio turns to the blonde boy, Alan, and asks what brought him to the library so suddenly. Alan explains he was looking for the head maid about his and Jack's training, but got curious about the situation. He then asks his brother why he's making Rhea come here daily and what's with the food, to which Lucio replies he has plans for her. Lucio explains the food is a treat for Rhea, claiming it's her favorite, leaving a baffled Alan to mutter, "Treat? What?" Alan asks about the boy with him, introducing him as Jack, a new trainee knight and his sparring partner from Rhea's old orphanage. Jack formally greets Lucio, stating it's an honor to meet him. Lucio thoughtfully repeats that Jack is from the same orphanage as Rhea. Whoa! Alan is ecstatic when Lucio agrees to watch their training at the grounds before his appointment. Alan tells Jack to go on ahead, saying he'll grab a few books before joining him. As Jack leaves, Alan turns and calls out to Rhea. He warns her how lucky she is, explaining that his brother would normally have kicked her out of the duchy for waking him. Seeing her guilty reaction, Alan realizes with a jolt what must have happened. "You're crazy," he exclaims, realizing she almost lost her job, while a mortified Rhea apologizes, admitting she didn't know. Brushing it aside, Alan asks the crucial question. Why does she think his brother let her off so easily? Rhea is left speechless, unable to answer. Her mind flashes back, wondering why Lucio, who initially disliked her, would suddenly show such kindness. Could it be? She recalls the moment she gently touched his forehead while he slept. Suspecting it changed everything, her thoughts land on a single reason for his kindness. It's because of Diana. A confused Rhea listens as Alan confirms Lucio only let her off because of Diana. Alan explains Lucio is weak to Diana, and her giving him the cold shoulder after he insulted Rhea made him realize her importance. He looks at her intently, a thoughtful expression on his face as he connects the dots. A wave of realization hits Rhea as she understands the true reason for Lucio's actions. Moved to tears, Rhea realizes it was all for Diana, while a baffled Alan questions her emotional reaction. Alan asks her to tell Diana his brother was nice, then prepares to leave as Diana's lessons are ending. Just as she's leaving, Alan calls out to Rhea, telling her to wait. He stares at her with a dawning look of understanding, piecing something together. He bluntly asks if the other maids are bullying her, catching Rhea completely off guard. Stunned, Rhea is speechless at his direct and unexpected question. Alan explains that sending her to this restricted area is illogical unless it's bullying, but Rhea vehemently denies it. She reassures a concerned Alan that he doesn't need to worry, since she'll be safely in the library from now on. Flustered, she begs him not to do anything about it. Announcing she's in a hurry, Rhea quickly makes her exit. Alan calls out her name again, trying to stop her from leaving. He shouts an offer of help to her retreating figure, urging her to talk to him anytime. As Rhea runs, a narration states that Alan noticed her difficult situation. Rhea now realizes Lucio must have also known about the bullying and only intervened to protect someone important to Diana. She feels embarrassed that even Alan, whom she saw as a kid, figured it out, lamenting that none of this is her fault. She covers her mouth, looking downcast and ashamed. So the text that you want me to read back is, later she reads a fairy tale to Diana, finishing the story of a princess who lived happily ever after with her hero. Is that correct? Diana sleeps soundly, a peaceful smile on her face. Rhea watches over her, wryly noting that Diana begged for a story only to immediately fall asleep. She resents feeling indebted to Lucio, believing she could have resolved the servant issue on her own given more time. As Diana stirs in her sleep, Rhea worries about how her plans are failing and problems keep piling up. Looking at her friend, Rhea's resolve hardens. All she wants is to live happily with Diana forever. She sits quietly beside Diana's bed, watching over her as she sleeps.
A young maid with short brown hair reads a book to a little girl with long white hair resting in a grand bed. The brown-haired maid looks up from her book with a confused expression, asking what the girl means. The little white-haired girl is now fast asleep, her expression peaceful. Looking at the sleeping child, the brown-haired maid pauses in silent thought. In a memory, the maid, now wearing glasses, hugs the child, Diana, reflecting that she once dismissed the girl's attachment as mere survival instinct. She recalls her unwavering resolve to one day leave, even as she gently tucks Diana's hand into bed. Kneeling by the bedside, the maid holds the sleeping Diana's hand, her expression gentle yet determined. Later, she stands alone and pensive before a pair of large, ornate doors. Her eyes widen in surprise as a voice suddenly calls out her name. Rhea! An elegant, orange-haired woman standing beside a dark-haired man turns and asks if Diana is already asleep. Rhea confirms she just finished reading a fairy tale, and the woman, now seen from afar near a garden gate, thanks her for her hard work. The orange-haired woman faces a stern-looking, dark purple-haired woman who formally responds, "Yes, madam." The dark purple-haired woman turns to Rhea and excuses herself, leaving Rhea looking uneasy. Troubled by the woman's cold eyes, Rhea is called back to attention as her name is spoken again. Startled, Rhea turns to face the orange-haired woman and nervously responds. Clasping her hands, Rhea anxiously wonders if the head maid told the Duchess about the other maids bullying her. The Duchess places a reassuring hand on Rhea's shoulder, and Rhea inwardly feels that this is good news. Smiling kindly, the Duchess says that a boy named Lucio must really like Rhea, as he doesn't normally let anyone get close. Flustered, Rhea waves her hands and humbly insists it must be because of Lady Diana. The Duchess reminisces, explaining that Lucio was always independent, as a reflection shows him as a young white-haired boy with a sword. She recalls a painful memory of the elders accusing her of ruining the heir as she clung to her child. The Duchess concludes her sad tale, explaining she sent Lucio to the capital and still regrets the decision. Shaking off the somber mood, the Duchess cheerfully encourages Rhea to study as much as she likes in the library. Rhea walks alone down a sun-dappled path, reflecting on the Duchess's story. She thoughtfully recalls hearing that the head maid was the one who took care of Lucio when he was a child. Connecting Lucio's cold gaze with the head maid's demeanor, Rhea realizes his attitude toward the woman was anything but warm. Standing outside in the evening air, Rhea wonders if there are still secrets she doesn't know. Her thoughtful expression shifts to one of surprise as she notices something in the distance. Under the moonlight, she sees him, the white-haired young man, Lucio, standing alone with his sword. Rhea whispers his name, overwhelmed by questions but feeling powerless to act. Lucio stands with a serious expression, his piercing blue eyes fixed on something. The scene flashes to a bright daytime garden as he looks out over the estate. Back in the moonlight, Lucio glances over his shoulder, wondering if he just imagined something. A hand gently pulls a book from a library shelf. As Rhea carries a book up the library stairs, she reflects on how much has happened recently. She recalls the head maid reprimanding her bullies, noting that while the maid's complaints continued, the abuse stopped. Thanks to Lucio's order, she now enjoys the privilege of staying in the main library whenever she wishes. Suddenly, a vision of her overbearing past family flashes through her mind, causing her to grimace with annoyance. Her focus returns to the library as she sets a stack of books down with a soft thud. Settling onto a sofa, Ria happily begins to read, enjoying the peace and quiet while Lucio is away. As she reads, an unsettling feeling creeps over her, and she murmurs that something feels uncomfortable. Lucio suddenly leans over her shoulder from behind, startling her as he asks what's wrong. Jumping in shock, Ria stammers in surprise, to which Lucio calmly replies that he just arrived. Later, holding a tea set, Ria wonders if Lucio brought snacks again, feeling both thankful and worried about her waistline. Her eyes widen as she recognizes the paper bag in his hands. It contains bread from the stall in front of the academy. The bag is open to reveal 3 golden, flaky croissants, sparkling with freshness. Lucio offers her a croissant, which she accepts with a quiet thank you. Holding the warm bread, Ria is touched but dismisses the idea that he would go through so much trouble just for her. She takes a big, satisfying bite of the croissant. Savoring the taste, she smiles, finally understanding how delicious it truly is. A flashback begins with a young hand holding a piece of coarse bread. A sad-looking young girl is asked why she's making such a face when she was the one who wanted the bread. A young, white-haired boy then offers her an alternative, presenting a small, round brown candy. Kneeling before her, the boy holds out the candy on a red string, encouraging her to try it. As he offers the treat, he calls it a magic potion that makes you feel good, to the girl's wide-eyed wonder. The magic potion is placed gently into her outstretched palm. Believing a noble young master wouldn't lie, the young girl decides to trust him. She eats the candy, and her face lights up with delight as she exclaims that it's delicious. The boy smiles softly, asking if she feels better now. A sudden realization dawns on the girl as she wonders what his name is. She recalls mumbling the names Lucio and Elred during practice, then remembers bowing and apologizing profusely to the boy. Blushing with embarrassment, she promises to never call him by his name again without permission. The young, white-haired boy watches her apology with a quiet, unreadable expression. Ria's narration recalls that she never received an answer to her apology that day. The memory of that sweet chocolate remains vivid, a taste she never forgot. Back in the present, holding the croissant, Ria reflects that she never thought she'd taste something so wonderful again. In a bright, sunny garden, an elegantly dressed woman with light brown hair smiles warmly, holding a necklace. Ria's thoughts drift, noting that the Duchess still hasn't visited the library. She considers that the Duchess might just be busy, but recalls the expression on her face when she spoke of Lucio. Remembering the Duchess's lonely look, Ria wonders if she thinks Lucio feels uncomfortable around her. Hesitantly, Ria begins to speak to Lucio as they sit together in the library. Lucio asks Ria why the head maid calls him by his first name. Startled by the question, Ria begins to stammer out an explanation. She simply explains that it's just a long-standing habit. Ria recounts the head maid's story, explaining that she knew Lucio in the capital before becoming head maid, and he insisted she continue using his name. As Ria finishes explaining, Lucio listens intently with a neutral gaze. Feeling awkward after sharing the story, Ria trails off uncertainly. Lucio smirks slightly, asking if she's suggesting he is closer to the head maid than to his own mother. Flustered, Ria quickly denies it when Lucio presses her, asking if his mother implied such a thing. Changing the subject, Ria tentatively asks if he would consider being a little kinder to the Duchess. She knows she is overstepping, but hopes it might ease the Duchess's heart. Ria thinks that perhaps her intervention can prevent a future tragedy. Her eyes are wide with resolve as she looks toward him. Surprised by his lack of anger, Ria wonders if Lucio was always this kind, but he tells her it's her turn to be honest. Lucio looks directly at Ria and asks a simple question. Why are you afraid of me? He points out how she trembled when they first met and has frozen up every time she's seen him since. A cute animation shows a cheerful Ria and a confused, blushing Lucio. Lucio, in chibi form, wonders if he hurt her feelings. Ria frantically denies being hurt, but admits she wasn't happy either, immediately regretting her jumbled words. Returning to the serious moment, Lucio stares at her, awaiting a real answer. A beautiful memory of a smiling Diana in a flower crown flashes by. Ria closes her eyes and states that plenty of people want to look pretty for him, but Lucio remains silent. Another vision appears of a younger, joyful Diana running with open arms. Their conversation is interrupted as a voice calls for Miss, and they both turn in surprise. Diana leaps into Ria's arms for a hug, exclaiming how much she missed her, while Lucio watches. Diana cheerfully announces that she came to play with Rhea. Lucio gently advises Diana to ask for an escort next time, but she confidently replies that she knows the way. Rhea returns the hug with a warm smile, embracing the happy little girl. Holding Diana close, Rhea turns to Lucio and announces that it's now playtime. Lucio gives his permission for her to go, and Rhea promises to see him tomorrow as she leaves with Diana. Lucio listens with a cool, unreadable expression as Rhea continues her explanation. Facing him, Rhea insists she has never wanted to look pretty for him, her words trailing off. Lucio's piercing blue eyes watch her intently, searching for the truth in her words. Rhea finishes her thought, stating that as long as she looks nice to the young lady, that's all that matters. She offers a gentle, sincere smile, her statement seemingly resolving the tension. Lucio remains still, his formal shoes gleaming on the ornate rug. A smirk plays on Lucio's lips as he reflects on her surprising statement. He inwardly recalls her bold words, picturing a flustered version of himself beside a confident Rhea. His mind flashes back to the moment she woke him in the library, gently touching his forehead. A soft, knowing smile graces his lips as he reflects on their encounters. The scene shifts to a happy memory of Rhea and Diana running and laughing together in a garden. Later, Diana sleeps peacefully in her bed, letting out a soft coo. Rhea sits by the bedside, watching over the sleeping girl with a fond smile. She gently pats the blanket, wishing Diana sweet dreams until dinner. With a flash of determination, Rhea sees her chance to slip away now that Diana is asleep. She tiptoes out of the room, thinking that with her library work also done, she has some free time. Determined, she hurries towards a pair of large double doors, believing now is the perfect time. Rhea's imagination runs wild as she giddily pictures a dashing, long-haired man from one of her stories. Humming happily, she walks along an outdoor balcony, planning to write a letter with the stationery the Duchess gave her. A sudden patter sounds as rain begins to fall on the lush green leaves below. As the rain starts pouring, she decides she'd better grab an umbrella for the walk back. Entering a hallway, she stops, confused by the group of maids gathered ahead. Shocked, she recognizes her own room and demands to know what they are all doing there. A close-up shows her dress being clutched by another maid's hand. A brown-haired maid with her hair in a bun smirks, explaining they heard rumors about her and decided to search her room. She mockingly holds up a beautiful pink and white dress, asking what they found, while Rhea insists the Duchess bought it for her. The lead maid scoffs at her claim, grabbing the dress dismissively. She cruelly questions why the Duchess would give such an expensive dress to a mere maid, leaving Rhea stunned and blushing. Rhea recalls storing the dress carefully with a letter, wondering how they found it, as the other maids gossip about her sticky fingers. A voice demands she explain herself as a crumpled letter lies on the floor. A sneering thought bubble appears, calling her arrogant. The crumpled letter lies on the floor as a voice asks if she really thought she could get away with it. With a malicious grin, the lead maid begins to rip the dress, causing Rhea to gasp in horror. Kia. Rhea looks on in utter disbelief, wondering if this is some kind of joke. Her trembling hands reach for the crumpled letter, a symbol of the kindness she's been shown. A painful memory surfaces of being bullied as a child, reflecting that she's always been treated this way. She recalls being pushed to the ground and surrounded by mocking peers, always facing mockery and disdain. Despairing, she wonders why this keeps happening, feeling trapped as a lowly orphan with nowhere else to go. The lead maid sneers, questioning if it's right for someone so insignificant to act up. With a cruel, shadowy smile, Rhea's inner voice concludes that her only fault was being ordinary. She sees herself as plain and unremarkable, not pretty, not exceptional. In a dark, thorny vision, she's perceived as ordinary, less than them, a being they couldn't understand receiving love. They saw her as easy and weak. She was a being they felt they could crush any time, but she declares she has let them off until now. Rhea stands before the two maids who cornered her in her room. The lead maid angrily asks if that's all she has to say, declaring she was going to let it pass. But then a change comes over Rhea as her expression hardens with resolve. A massive wave of fire erupts from Rhea, blasting the two bullies backward as they scream in terror. Kia. Engulfed in flames, her face a mask of rage, Rhea screams, demanding to know why they keep tormenting her. Amidst the roaring flames, voices cry out in panic, shouting, "Fire!" and urging everyone to run. The cowering brown-haired maid stares in horror at the inferno, accusingly calling Rhea a devil of a girl. Rhea's expression is cold and distant as she quietly considers the maid's accusation, thinking, "Devil? In a dark internal monologue, Rhea reflects that she could have left the Duke of Ellard's estate at any time, but chose not to. She dismisses her plans for an independence fund as a convenient excuse for the real reason she endured the torment and stayed. The true reason is revealed in a cherished memory of a sunny day, laughing with Diana as they wear matching flower crowns. The memory focuses on Diana's radiant smile, a picture of pure, innocent joy. Standing over the terrified maid amidst the flames, Rhea coldly asks that if she's a devil, what does that make her tormentor? Her hand burns with magical fire as she asserts that she didn't stay to be tormented when she could have left at any time. The brown-haired maid is completely engulfed in the inferno, letting out a final, agonized scream. A sharp voice suddenly shouts, "Rhea!" and her eyes widen in surprise, breaking her concentration. The desperate voice continues from the doorway, begging her, "Rhea, please look at me." The Duchess stands amidst the chaos, her face filled with terror as she pleads with Rhea to stop. Pulled from her rage, Rhea looks on in a daze, weakly thinking the Duchess's title. Her eyes widen further as she realizes Lucio and the Duke are also there, watching the scene in utter shock. Her thoughts spiral into a dark void as she wonders if they're angry with her for setting fire to their house. Overwhelmed, she covers her face, questioning if their anger is simply because of what she is, her power now revealed. A hand suddenly grabs her wrist, glowing with a cool blue light that contrasts sharply with the raging fire. A hand is offered to her as a gentle voice urges her to take it and come away from the danger. Her head feels like it's burning as a wave of dizziness washes over her from the magical exertion. She weakly tries to reassure the Duchess that she's okay, steadying herself on a nearby surface. In the darkness of her mind, she concludes that there's only one way she can possibly end this situation. Standing in the rain with the fire raging behind her, her expression is one of somber, pained resolve. Realizing her intent, the Duchess screams in panic, desperately yelling for Rhea to stop. The Duchess screams Rhea's name as she sees her lying unconscious on the floor among the other fallen maids. Lucio watches the scene with a shocked expression as a voice from off-screen screams, "No!" A sudden realization hits Rhea as she recalls seeing that same look in Lucio's eyes once before. The memory is of a time she was bullied, falsely accused of stealing a fountain pen as she desperately proclaimed her innocence. In the painful flashback, her younger self cries helplessly, trying to wipe away her tears. A younger Lucio, dressed in a school uniform, had been watching the incident with a quiet, unreadable expression. Her younger self had looked up, her tear-filled eyes wide with surprise as she noticed him watching her. She had interpreted his gaze as one of contempt, feeling judged and shamed under his spotlight. As she tried to flee the humiliating scene, her accuser shouted for her to stop running. She didn't listen, her feet pounding the pavement as she ran away from the false accusation. Alone and ashamed, she thought that she never wanted him, of all people, to see her in such a pathetic state. Her desperate question echoed in her mind, "Why won't anyone believe me?" The weight of the world seems to crash down upon her in that moment of despair. Collapsed on the ground in defeat, her final thought in the memory is of Lucio, but from his perspective, he had simply wondered why she was looking at him with such a pained expression. As she lay on the ground, someone's feet approached, and a soft voice observed that she looked like she was in pain. A mysterious man with long black hair knelt before her, offering his hand and inviting her to come with him. Back in the fiery present, Rhea thinks of all the things she's wanted to ask Lucio now that they've met again. She wonders how he recognized her, if he truly remembered her from their childhood, and so much more. In the present, Lucio holds her unconscious form, his face etched with panic as he screams her name. His expression is one of pure terror as he looks down at her, surrounded by the raging fire. Though unconscious, a single tear escapes from her closed eye, tracing a path down her cheek. Outside the estate, a heavy rain pours down from a dark sky, mirroring the turmoil within. Elsewhere, a distraught pink-haired woman is held back by a man, murmuring in disbelief, "No, this can't be." She throws herself against a window overlooking the scene, screaming, "No!" in absolute horror. A blonde man looks up in shock, calling out for his wife. He rushes to a crying pink-haired woman, asking if she's all right as she clutches his chest, exclaiming that their baby is crying. Panicked, she tells him she can't do anything to stop her child's pain and desperately asks what she should do. In tears, the woman believes her baby is calling for her and feels she should be by her side. The blonde man looks down in anguish, apologizing that he couldn't protect their child. He pulls the grieving woman into a tight embrace, repeating how truly sorry he is. With a hardened expression, the Duke summons his butler, ordering him to fetch Captain Marietta. The girl, Rhea, lies still, her hands clutching a red pendant on her chest. A man with brown hair asks about her condition, and a silver-haired man gravely informs him that tonight will be the critical point, shocking him. The silver-haired man furiously questions the sudden turn for the worse, explaining that she suffered a mana rampage, an event that should have killed her instantly. He explains that her survival is a miracle, likely due to her instinct to protect everyone by fleeing the manor before the mana exploded. The silver-haired man's expression softens with concern as he watches her. Clenching his fist, he silently processes the gravity of her sacrifice. A warm, sunlit memory shows Rhea in her maid uniform, her back turned as she stands in a hopeful light. Sniff. From behind a grand door, a small child's voice is heard sniffing and calling for her sister. A crying Diana pleads with her mother, desperate to see Rhea and asking if she's truly sick. The Duchess gently comforts Diana, explaining that her sister needs to rest right now. As the Duchess carries Diana away, a young Lucio watches them and quietly agrees. Why? Diana cries for her mother as a determined Lucio rushes past them. A close-up reveals Lucio's worried yet resolute gaze. Lucio frantically asks where Rhea is and learns that she's currently receiving treatment inside. He presses for more information, asking to see her, when the Duke's voice interrupts, calling out to someone nearby. The Duke sternly orders a flustered staff member to immediately fetch the head maid. With a grim and determined expression, the Duke makes a silent vow. He resolves to hold someone accountable for what has happened. Lucio watches his father, his own expression serious and shadowed. The scene transitions to the sunlit facade of the magnificent ducal estate. In a grand bedroom, Rhea awakens to find the Duke and Duchess watching over her. She looks around, confused and wondering where she is. The Duchess and Duke rush to her bedside, relieved to see that Rhea is finally awake. Startled by their presence, Rhea looks slightly flustered and overwhelmed. The Duchess gently advises Rhea to stay still, reminding her that she hasn't fully recovered yet. A physician bursts in, excitedly reporting to the Duke that the child has regained consciousness. Standing before the family, the physician reassures the Duchess not to worry. Click, he opens his medical case, revealing a large, glowing mana crystal. Using the crystal's power, he directs a stream of blue healing energy toward Rhea. The physician hands her a pouch of medicine, warning that her throat is badly damaged. Rhea quietly accepts the medicine pouch from the physician. He asks if she remembers the mana outburst, and a memory flashes of her confronting the other maids as she confirms she does. She silently clutches the medicine, lost in thought. Rhea is grateful that they treated her instead of casting her out. The Duke and Duchess appear shocked by her unspoken gratitude. The Duke closes his eyes, a faint, relieved smile gracing his lips. The physicians bow to the Duke, confirming they will follow his orders. Believing she's about to be scolded and expelled, Rhea resolves to at least say goodbye to Diana first. The Duke looks down at her with a calm, thoughtful expression. He surprises Rhea by asking if she truly sees them as unreliable adults. A confused Rhea asks him to repeat himself, and he questions why she didn't confide in them from the start. He explains that the servants in the capital, unlike the ducal staff, don't know the circumstances of her arrival. A voice explains they kept her power quiet to protect Diana, but would have acted sooner if they knew it was hurting her. The Duke looks at her with pained frustration, exclaiming that she should have just said something to them. Overwhelmed, Rhea tearfully apologizes to the Duke. She rushes forward, throwing her arms around the Duchess in a desperate hug. The Duchess holds her tightly, her own eyes filling with tears of relief and empathy. Clutching the Duchess's dress, Rhea tearfully asks if they are going to kick her out. The Duchess holds her hands firmly, vehemently denying the notion and asking why she would ever think that. Rhea confesses she was scared because everyone hated her and she felt like a burden to them. Why? The emotional dam breaks, and Rhea sobs uncontrollably in her bed. The Duchess comforts her, promising they will help her if she just tells them when she's scared. Flustered, the Duchess apologizes for worrying her, while the Duke and Rhea look on. The Duke declares that she no longer needs to work as a maid, explaining they only allowed it because she wanted it. Rhea is taken aback, worriedly asking what the head maid will say about this. She learns with shock that the head maid has been put on probation. It's revealed that Lucio handled everything, interrogating and punishing all the maids who bullied her before driving them out. The Duchess tries to spare Rhea the details, but Rhea asks to know why she shouldn't be told. The Duke explains the head maid was a pillar of the estate, so he was surprised punishment was handed down so easily. Reassuring her, the Duchess tells Rhea to focus on her recovery as the Duke walks away. Suddenly, Diana and Lucio burst into the room, excitedly calling out for their sister, Rhea. Diana rushes to her side, grabbing her arm and anxiously asking if she's okay and if the pain is gone. With a soft, gentle smile, Rhea reassures the young lady that she is fine now. The family gathers in the bedroom, a sense of peace settling over them as Lucio approaches the bed. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny day at the grand and peaceful ducal estate. Later, the Duke rests in a chair, rubbing his weary eyes, lost in thought. His inner monologue reveals that despite the resolution, his anger still lingers. He questions his own actions, wondering if he should have forced her tormentors to kneel or done something even more severe. The scene flashes back to a sunlit garden, where a younger Rhea is approached by a mysterious figure. Startled, she looks up from the ground and nervously asks who he is. A young, elegantly dressed Lucio stands before her in the vibrant garden. He explains that he found her because she kept calling his name in her sleep. Rhea looks back at him, a dazed and slightly confused expression on her face. The two children stand in a quiet clearing, surrounded by the light filtering through the trees. From his perspective, Lucio recalls seeing her as a frightened, newborn beast when he first found her. He remembers hating how she looked at him with fear, even when he knelt to offer her food and medicine. In another memory, Lucio walks alone down a stone path, drawing stares from the people around him. He silently wonders why she always looks at him with such frightened eyes. His expression hardens with a quiet resolve. The flashback returns to the fountain pen incident, where her accuser shouts for her to stop. He watches as Rhea runs, her eyes meeting his for a brief, painful moment before she flees. The blonde-haired accuser scoffs, calling her a beggar brat for daring to touch his belongings. Suddenly, a hand violently grabs the boy's collar from behind. A furious Lucio, his eyes glowing, slams the bully against a wall, demanding to know what he was doing to her. Lucio's grip tightens as he holds the terrified boy against the bricks. With cold fury, Lucio orders him to get out of his sight at once. He promises to decide on a punishment later, prompting the bully to apologize and flee in terror. Onlooking students whisper about Lord Lucio's uncharacteristic behavior, but his intense gaze remains unchanged. Kya! A girl who bumps into him screams in terror as he glares at her, his anger still palpable. He turns and walks away, his frustration evident in his stride. In another memory, Lucio recalls a day he asked Rhea if she had any wishes. She had told him her wish was simple, for someone to just ask if she was okay when she was sick. In a sun-drenched memory, a younger Rhea smiles with pure, unadulterated happiness. Memory of a younger, white-haired Lucio shows him looking flustered in his school uniform. In the dreamlike memory, Rhea's younger self smiles warmly, inviting someone to come with her. The memory sharpens, focusing on Lucio's piercing blue eyes, filled with a sudden intensity. Waking with a start, Lucio sits up in bed, murmuring that he had that same dream again. He reflects that the dream always stirs his mind, but he can never remember it once he wakes up. As morning light fills a lavish room, a new day begins at the estate. Whoa! The sight of a luxurious new bed leaves someone in absolute awe. The Duke carries Rhea into her new room, followed by Lucio, Diana, and another young boy. Smiling warmly, the Duke holds Rhea and officially welcomes her to her new room. Rhea happily tells Diana that she loves the new room and the bed is incredibly soft. Suddenly, a blonde-haired boy approaches and presents a beautifully wrapped gift box to a surprised Rhea. She holds the gift, looking down at it with a touched and slightly uncertain expression. Inside the box is a beautiful white dress adorned with a pink ribbon and a wax-sealed letter. This is... As Rhea stares in shock, the blonde boy tells her to thank their mother for the gift, not him. He recalls his mother, the Duchess, carefully organizing the dress and letter herself. Overwhelmed by the gesture, Rhea looks at the boy and wonders how she can ever repay this kindness. Diana excitedly asks her recovered sister to play more, and Rhea promises to make a chocolate fountain for her soon. Lucio appears in the doorway, holding a book with a stoic expression on his face. The other siblings rush to greet him, happily calling out for their brother, the young Duke. Rhea nervously greets the young master, timidly asking what brings him to her room. He silently holds out a familiar-looking book, explaining that he brought the one she was reading earlier. Ah, thank you. A flustered Rhea accepts the book he's returned to her. Taking the heavy tome, she can't believe he actually carried it all the way there just for her. Before she can pull away, Lucio gently takes her wrist, observing that he finally managed to put a little weight on her. Huh? Rhea looks up at him in confusion as he notes that she looks fragile enough to snap at any moment. Lucio holds her thin wrist, his expression unreadable as she remains speechless and stunned by his comment. Embarrassed, Rhea thinks he has no shame and timidly asks the young master to please let go of her hand. He releases her wrist and offers her a small, ornate golden item. She examines the object, realizing it's a key, as Lucio announces he'll be returning to the academy soon. With a slight, almost imperceptible smile, Lucio turns to leave. The scene transitions with a flourish. Lucio stands silently, his blue eyes watching her with a calm, steady gaze. He tells her to use the key to open it whenever she wants, and to make herself comfortable. His unexpected words leave Rhea completely flustered and shaking with surprise. Looking at the key, she happily realizes that now she'll be able to read books more often. The scene peacefully settles on the sunlit room, marking a quiet moment of change. Waking up refreshed, Rhea stretches and exclaims that she had a good sleep. Looking out the window at the lovely weather, she wonders if she's allowed to go outside yet. A happy family portrait appears as she recalls that after everyone had come to visit her, she had spent several days being cared for like a pampered cat, with the Duchess checking in on her. Fully recovered, Rhea sits up in her grand bed ready to start the day. The Duchess promises to have something sent for her today before turning to leave the room. Venturing out, Rhea comes across a blonde maid who is busy sweeping the hallway. The maid kindly asks if her body is all right and if she's allowed outside, to which Rhea confirms the physician gave her permission. The maid gives her a warm, reassuring smile. A bit shy but grateful, Rhea thanks the maid for her concern. As she walks down the hall, Rhea quietly wonders what happened to cause this change. Standing by a sunlit window, she realizes that ever since she moved rooms, everyone's attitude towards her has shifted. Walking toward a set of grand doors, Rhea reflects that the family's kindness is starting to soften her resolve. She finds the door to the drawing room unexpectedly open and prepares to tell the family something important. Peeking inside, she sees the family gathered, as the Duke gravely announces he has something to discuss about their family. Inside, the Duchess sits calmly on a sofa, holding a content Diana in her lap. Alan remarks that she is still a bit foolish, but the Duke sternly cuts him off by saying his name. With a troubled expression, the Duchess clenches her fist, thinking that what happened was very unfair. The Duke vows to prevent such mistreatment from happening again, but worries about Rhea's safety outside the estate, causing Alan to angrily ask if they're kicking her out. Alan argues that a small child like Rhea couldn't survive outside, and questions why she would ever want to leave when he and Diana treat her so well. The Duke clarifies they don't plan to send her away, but they must consider that Rhea might want to leave, since her feelings are unknown. The Duchess agrees with her husband, explaining that their discussion is merely a precaution, just in case. Getting to the heart of the matter, the Duchess proposes that they officially accept Rhea as a member of their family, catching Lucio's attention. The Duke looks at Lucio and confirms his wife's words, stating his desire to formally adopt Rhea. His true intention is to give her the Ellard family name, allowing her to live with pride, free from being looked down upon by anyone. A wide-eyed Diana asks what adoption is, and the Duchess gently explains that it means Rhea will become her real older sister. The Duchess looks down with a gentle, loving smile. She pats a beaming Diana on the head, who is overjoyed at the thought of having Rhea as her sister. The Duke watches his family's reaction with a stoic, unreadable expression. Alan looks flustered by the idea of another younger sister, his thoughts trailing off in confusion. But Lucio breaks the mood with two simple words, his expression cold. "I don't like it." The Duchess looks at him in shock, asking her son for his reason for opposing the adoption. Lucio states his reason plainly, looking toward his mother and Diana. "For me, Diana is my only little sister." Having overheard everything from the doorway, Rhea decides she has heard enough. A letter slips from her grasp and falls to the floor. She covers her mouth, her eyes wide with shock and pain from Lucio's rejection. Clutching her dress, she tells herself to be grateful they even considered it, but can't help questioning the hurt she feels. As Lucio's words echo in her mind, she wonders if her disappointment will fester into resentment. She immediately chides herself, questioning if she even has the right to feel resentful after all the kindness the ducal house has shown her. A warm, sepia-toned image of the complete family, including her, flashes in her mind a picture of what could have been. Stealing her resolve, Rhea decides she must not let her true feelings show and make them uncomfortable. She stands alone in the vast, empty hallway, a small and solitary figure. Sometime later, Rhea, now in her maid uniform, presents a letter to the Duchess, who asks if it was difficult to write. Rhea looks up with a gentle smile, explaining that the more she learned, the more she came to appreciate what a wonderful place the estate is. Holding the letter, the Duchess seems poised to ask Rhea a follow-up question. Before she can speak, Alan peeks around the doorframe, interrupting the quiet moment. Rhea stands patiently in her maid's uniform, her expression calm but tinged with a hint of melancholy. A new day begins at the sun-drenched ducal estate. The family gathers to see Lucio off as he prepares to leave, with the Duchess promising they'll meet again at the festival. Rhea thinks of the upcoming festival, recalling how excited Alan was about them all going together. Her thoughts drift to memories of the academy, which was always bustling with people during the festival. Just before leaving, Lucio turns to Rhea and quietly tells her to treat this place as her own home. Startled by his unexpected words, Rhea looks at him in utter confusion. He gently cups her cheek, softly admitting that he really does like having her here. With a faint, sincere smile, Lucio asks her to stay here always. As a grand white carriage pulls away, a small voice calls out, telling her brother not to cry, and that Dana will see him soon. Rhea stands frozen, her heart in turmoil after Lucio's confusing and heartfelt farewell. The horse-drawn carriage departs down the tree-lined path, leaving the estate behind. Years later, an older, more mature Lucio sits by a window, admitting to himself that he still can't figure out what lies in her heart.